Claire Ashford is a billionaire tech CEO who's been running the cruelest social experiment of her life. She shows up to blind dates dressed like she's broke, unemployed, and desperate, just to watch men's interest flatline the second they realize she can't pay. For 2 years, 27 dates, 27 failures. Tonight is number 28, and she expects nothing different. Then she meets Noah Brooks, a grease-stained single-dad mechanic who covers her dinner tab without flinching, like kindness costs nothing at all. For the first time in her life, Claire doesn't know how to win her own game. Because Noah isn't playing. Want to see if a billionaire can fall in love without her $1 billion? Stay until the end, then hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Claire Ashford stood in front of her walk-in closet, bigger than most studio apartments, and stared at the racks of designer clothes like they were evidence in a crime she was about to commit. Again. Her fingers grazed a Chanel blazer, then moved past it. Too sharp, too expensive, too her. She pulled out a faded thrift store cardigan instead, the kind with pilled sleeves and a missing button. Perfect. She paired it with worn jeans, scuffed flats that had seen better decades, and a canvas tote bag she'd bought specifically because it looked like it had survived 3-yard sales. She caught her reflection in the floor-length mirror. Claire Ashford, 34, CEO of Ashford Technologies, worth $2.3 billion, named one of Forbes' most powerful women 3 years running, looked like someone who couldn't afford parking. Exactly the point. Her phone buzzed, a text from her assistant, Marcus. Date number 28 confirmed. Pinewood Bistro, 7 p.m. His name is Noah Brooks. Background check attached. Clean record. Single father. Works as a mechanic. No red flags. Claire didn't open the attachment. She never did anymore. The details didn't matter. The outcome was always the same. She grabbed her keys, not to the Bentley in the private garage, but to the beat-up Honda Civic she kept registered under a fake LLC for exactly these occasions. Then she walked out of her penthouse, rode the elevator down 62 floors, and stepped into the kind of life she'd spent 2 years pretending to live. Pinewood Bistro wasn't fancy. It was the kind of neighborhood spot where the menu was laminated and the booths had duct tape on the seams. Claire had chosen it deliberately. She always did. Somewhere cheap. Somewhere a broke, unemployed woman might suggest because she couldn't afford anywhere better. She walked in at 7:03 p.m., late enough to seem flustered, early enough to seem eager. She spotted him immediately. Noah Brooks sat in a corner booth, checking his phone. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. His hands were clean, but there were faint grease stains under his nails that no amount of scrubbing could erase. His face was open, kind, the kind of face that made you think he'd help you change a tire in the rain without expecting anything in return. Claire's stomach tightened. Not with attraction, though he was handsome in that unpolished, unpretentious way that didn't exist in her usual circles. No, it was something else, something closer to guilt. She pushed it down. She was good at that. "Noah?" she asked, walking up to the booth. He looked up and his face broke into a smile. Genuine, warm, relieved. "Claire?" She nodded, sliding into the seat across from him. "Sorry I'm late. The bus was—" "You're fine," he said quickly, waving it off. "I just got here myself." Liar. He'd been here at least 10 minutes. She could tell by the half-empty water glass and the way his coat was already draped over the back of the booth. But it was a kind lie, the kind that said, "I don't want you to feel bad." Claire's chest squeezed again. She ignored it. "So," Noah said, leaning forward slightly, his elbows on the table. "You work in marketing, right? That's what your profile said." "Sort of," Claire said, keeping her voice light, casual. "Freelance stuff, graphic design mostly. It's been slow lately." "Yeah, I hear that," Noah said, nodding sympathetically. "Economy's rough right now. I've got a buddy who does web design. He's been scraping by on side gigs for months." Claire nodded along, playing the part. She'd done this 27 times before. She knew the script by heart. But then Noah said something that derailed her. "What kind of design do you like doing? Like, if money wasn't an issue and you could work on anything, what would it be?" Claire blinked. It was such a small question, so innocent, but no one had ever asked her that before. Not on these dates. Usually by now, the guy had already pivoted to talking about himself, or worse, started making excuses to leave early once they realized she wasn't going to split a $200 dinner bill. Claire hesitated, then recovered. I guess I like branding, helping people figure out who they are, what they want to say to the world. It wasn't entirely a lie. She had built her company's brand from the ground up. She'd spent years figuring out how to make Ashford Technologies synonymous with innovation, precision, power. But she'd also spent years figuring out how to make herself synonymous with those things. And lately, she wasn't sure if she liked what that said about her. Noah smiled. That's cool. I like that. It's like you're helping people tell their story. Yeah, Claire said softly. Something like that. The waitress came by, a tired-looking woman in her 50s with a pen stuck behind her ear. What can I get you to? Noah glanced at Claire. You want to start with an appetizer or something? Claire shook her head quickly. I'm good with just water for now. The waitress raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. Noah ordered a burger and fries, then looked at Claire again. You sure? The mac and cheese here is really good. I'm sure, Claire said, keeping her tone light. I'm not super hungry. Another lie. She was starving. She'd skipped lunch on purpose, knowing she'd need to play this part convincingly. But this was the test. This was where it always fell apart. Noah didn't push, he just nodded and handed his menu back to the waitress. All right, just the burger for me then. Claire waited. This was usually the moment when the guy started doing the math in his head. She didn't order anything. She said she's freelancing. She probably can't afford it. Do I offer to pay? Do I just let it go? Is this going to be awkward? And then the interest would drain from their face like water from a cracked glass. They'd start checking their phones more. They'd cut the date short. They'd say something polite and vague about staying in touch. And then she'd never hear from them again. 27 times. 27 men. 27 failures. But Noah just smiled at her. So, tell me about yourself. What do you do for fun when you're not designing? Claire stared at him. He wasn't pulling back. He wasn't checking his phone. He wasn't doing the mental math. He was just present. Claire fumbled for an answer. I like to read, I guess, and I run sometimes. Nothing exciting. What kind of books? Mostly thrillers, mystery stuff. Oh, nice. I'm more of a nonfiction guy myself. I've been reading this book about aviation history. Did you know the Wright brothers basically taught themselves how to fly? No formal training, no engineering degrees. They just figured it out. Claire found herself leaning in despite herself. That's insane. Right? Noah's eyes lit up. I love that kind of stuff. People who just refuse to let the world tell them something's impossible. There was something in the way he said it, so earnest, so genuine, that made Claire's carefully constructed mask crack just a little. What about you? She asked, surprising herself. What do you do? For work, I mean. I'm a mechanic, Noah said. No hesitation, no shame. I own a little shop on the east side. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine. I fix cars mostly. Sometimes small engines, lawnmowers, generators, that kind of thing. Do you like it? I love it, Noah said simply. There's something satisfying about taking something broken and making it work again, Plus, I'm my own boss. I get to set my own hours, which is huge because I've got a daughter. Claire's heart skipped. You have a daughter? Yeah, Maddie. She's 7. Noah pulled out his phone, swiped to his photos, and turned the screen toward Claire. The little girl in the picture had wild curls, a gap-toothed grin, and bright purple sneakers. She was holding up a toy dinosaur like it was a trophy. She's obsessed with dinosaurs right now, Noah said, his voice softening in a way that made Claire's chest ache. Last week she spent an hour explaining to me why a T-Rex couldn't actually roar because it didn't have the right vocal cords. She's 7. I don't even know where she learns this stuff. Claire stared at the photo. The little girl looked so happy, so safe, so loved. She's beautiful, Claire said quietly. She's my whole world, Noah said, slipping his phone back into his pocket. Her mom, my wife, she passed away 3 years ago, car accident. So it's just me and Maddie now. The words landed like stones in still water. Claire's throat tightened. I'm so sorry, she said, and she meant it. Thank you. Noah's smile turned sad but steady. It's been hard, but Maddie's amazing. She keeps me going, you know? Every day I wake up and think, I've got to be the kind of person she deserves, and that makes everything else easier. Claire didn't know what to say. She'd prepared for 100 different responses tonight. Boredom, judgment, pity, disdain, but not this. Not honesty. Not someone sitting across from her and just telling her the truth about his life. The food arrived. Noah dug into his burger with the unself-conscious ease of someone who wasn't trying to impress anyone. Claire sipped her water and watched him, her mind spinning. This wasn't supposed to happen. He wasn't supposed to be like this. Halfway through his meal, Noah paused, wiped his mouth with a napkin, and looked at her. Hey, are you sure you're not hungry? Because if you want something, I'm happy to. I'm fine, Claire said quickly. Okay. Noah didn't push, he just nodded and went back to eating. But when the check came, he picked it up without hesitation. He glanced at the total, pulled out his wallet, and put down cash, enough to cover the meal and a decent tip. Claire's pulse quickened. You don't have to. I know, Noah said, standing up and grabbing his coat. But I wanted to. He said it so simply, like it wasn't a calculation, like it wasn't a test, like it was just what you did. Claire stood up slowly, her legs feeling unsteady. This had never happened before, not once in 27 dates. They walked out into the cool evening air. The parking lot was nearly empty, lit by a single flickering street lamp. So, Noah said, turning to face her, I had a really good time tonight. I know it was just dinner, but I don't know, it felt easy, you know? Claire nodded, her throat tight. Yeah, it did. Can I see you again? The question hung in the air between them. Claire's mind raced. This was the moment she was supposed to bail. This was the moment she was supposed to say something vague and polite, and then disappear into her real life, leaving Claire the broke freelancer behind like a costume she'd outgrown. But when she looked at Noah, at his open, hopeful face, at the way he was looking at her like she mattered, she couldn't do it. Yes, she heard herself say, I'd like that. Noah's smile was so bright it hurt to look at. Great. How about this weekend? There's a farmer's market on Saturday morning. Nothing fancy, but Maddie loves it. You could come with us if you want. No pressure. Claire's heart stopped. You want me to meet your daughter? Only if you're comfortable with it, Noah said quickly. I know it's early, but Maddie's my whole life, and if this is going anywhere, I want her to be part of it from the start. She's a good judge of character. He laughed. Better than I am, honestly. Claire should have said no. She should have made an excuse, but instead she said, okay, Saturday. Perfect. Noah reached out and squeezed her hand, just once, gently, and then he was walking toward his truck, a beat-up Ford with a car seat in the back. Claire stood in the parking lot and watched him drive away, and for the first time in 2 years she didn't feel victorious. She felt terrified. Claire sat in her penthouse that night, still wearing the thrift store cardigan, staring out at the city lights below. Her phone was on the coffee table, Marcus's text still glowing on the screen. How did it go? She should respond. She should tell Marcus the same thing she always did. Another failure. He wasn't interested once he realized I didn't have money. Experiment continues. But that wasn't what happened tonight. Tonight, Noah had covered her dinner without hesitation. He'd smiled at her like she was worth his time. He'd invited her to meet his daughter. He'd treated her like she was real. Claire picked up her phone and typed out a response. It went differently. Marcus replied immediately. Good different or bad different? Claire stared at the screen for a long time before answering. I don't know yet. Saturday morning came too fast. Claire stood in front of her closet again, but this time the choice felt even harder. She couldn't show up in designer clothes. That would blow everything. But she also couldn't show up looking like she'd just rolled out of a cardboard box. Noah had said it was a farmer's market, casual, low-key. She settled on jeans, a plain sweater, and sneakers. Still cheap, still Claire the freelancer, but clean and put together enough not to look like she was trying too hard. She drove the Honda Civic to the address Noah had texted her, a park on the east side of the city where the farmer's market set up every weekend. The place was buzzing with people, Families with strollers, couples holding hands, vendors calling out prices for fresh bread and organic honey. Claire spotted Noah immediately. He was standing near a produce stand wearing a worn jacket and holding the hand of a little girl in a bright purple coat. Maddie. Claire's breath caught. The little girl was even smaller in person than she'd looked in the photo, all wild curls and boundless energy. She was bouncing on her toes, tugging on Noah's hand and pointing at something across the market. Noah saw Claire and waved. Maddie's head whipped around, following his gaze. Is that her? Maddie's voice carried across the distance, bright and curious. Noah nodded. Yeah, that's her. Remember what we talked about? Be polite. I'm always polite, Maddie said indignantly, but she was already racing toward Claire, purple sneakers flashing. Claire's heart hammered. She'd been in boardrooms with hostile investors. She'd negotiated billion-dollar deals. She'd stared down competitors who wanted her company to fail. But right now, facing this 7-year-old girl with sparkling eyes and a dinosaur backpack, she felt completely out of her depth. Hi! Maddie skidded to a stop in front of her, grinning. I'm Maddie. You're Claire, right? My dad said you're nice. Or are you nice? Claire blinked. Yes, I hope so. Good. Do you like dinosaurs? I don't know much about them. Maddie's eyes went wide, like Claire had just admitted she didn't know the sun was hot. You don't know about dinosaurs? Okay, that's fine. I can teach you. Did you know that the Stegosaurus had a brain the size of a walnut? But it was still super cool because it had those plates on its back. And Maddie, Noah said, catching up to them with a fond, exasperated smile. Maybe let Claire breathe for a second before you hit her with the dino facts. It's fine, Claire said, surprising herself. I want to hear about the Stegosaurus. Maddie's face lit up like Claire had just handed her the keys to the universe. And just like that, Claire was in. The next 2 hours were unlike anything Claire had experienced in years. They wandered through the farmer's market, Maddie chattering nonstop about dinosaurs, school, her best friend Lily, and the fact that her dad made the best pancakes in the world, but always burned the edges. Noah walked beside Claire, easy and relaxed, occasionally interjecting with a joke or a gentle correction when Maddie's enthusiasm got too loud. They stopped at a stand selling fresh donuts. Maddie tugged on Noah's jacket. Dad, can we get donuts? Sure, kiddo. What kind do you want? Chocolate. No, wait, sprinkles. No, both. Noah laughed. Pick one, Mads. Maddie pouted, then turned to Claire. What kind do you like? Claire hesitated. She hadn't eaten a donut in years. Her personal trainer would have a stroke. But Maddie was looking at her with such earnest hope that Claire couldn't bring herself to say no. I like the ones with cinnamon sugar, Claire said. Good choice, Noah said, grinning. He ordered 3 donuts, chocolate for Maddie, cinnamon sugar for Claire, and a plain glazed for himself. When the vendor handed them over in a little paper bag, Noah passed one to Claire without asking if she wanted to pay. They found a bench near the edge of the park and sat down. Maddie climbed into the space between Noah and Claire, swinging her legs and demolating her donut in approximately 4 bites. Okay, Maddie said, wiping chocolate from her face with the back of her hand. Now you have to tell me something about you. Claire froze. What do you want to know? Everything. Like, do you have a pet? Do you have brothers or sisters? What's your favorite color? Claire's mind went blank. She hadn't prepared for this. She'd prepared for awkward small talk with Noah, maybe some subtle probing questions, but she hadn't prepared for a 7-year-old to look at her like she was the most interesting person in the world. I don't have a pet, Claire said slowly. I don't have any siblings, and my favorite color is blue. Blue's nice, Maddie said thoughtfully. Mine's purple, obviously. She gestured to her coat, her sneakers, and the small dinosaur keychain clipped to her backpack. Obviously, Claire echoed, smiling despite herself. Do you have a job? Maddie asked. Noah cleared his throat. Maddie, it's okay, Claire said quickly. I do some design work, freelance stuff. What's freelance? It means I work for myself. I get to pick my own projects. That's cool, Maddie said. My dad works for himself too. He fixes cars. He's really good at it. He fixed my bike last week when the chain fell off. I'm sure he did, Claire said, glancing at Noah. Noah shrugged, looking slightly embarrassed. It wasn't a big deal. It was a big deal, Maddie insisted. I couldn't ride it, and I was really sad, and then Dad fixed it, and now it's perfect. Claire felt something crack open inside her chest. She looked at Noah, really looked at him, and saw someone who didn't just fix broken things. He fixed broken moments. He made his daughter feel safe, loved, seen, and she was lying to him. The thought hit her like a punch to the gut. "Hey," Noah said, leaning closer. "You okay? You look a little pale." "I'm fine," Claire said quickly. "Just tired." "We can head out if you want." "No," Claire said, too fast. "No, I'm good. Really." Maddie hopped off the bench, already scanning the market for the next thing to explore. "Can we go look at the flowers?" "Sure thing," Noah said, standing up and offering his hand to Claire. She took it. His palm was warm, rough from years of working with his hands. It felt real in a way nothing in her life had felt in a long time. They spent another hour wandering through the market. Maddie picked out a bouquet of wildflowers for Noah's kitchen table. Noah bought a loaf of fresh bread and made a joke about how he couldn't bake to save his life. Claire found herself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in months. When they finally walked back to the parking lot, Maddie was dragging her feet, clearly exhausted but refusing to admit it. "Okay, kiddo," Noah said, scooping her up into his arms. "Time to head home." Maddie didn't protest. She just rested her head on Noah's shoulder, her eyes already drooping. Noah looked at Claire over Maddie's curls. "Thanks for coming. This was really nice." "It was," Claire said, and she meant it. "Can we do it again? Maybe next weekend?" Claire should have said no. She should have ended this before it got any deeper. But when she looked at Maddie, fast asleep in her father's arms, and then at Noah, smiling at her like she was someone worth keeping around, she couldn't. "Yeah," Claire said softly. "I'd like that." Over the next 3 weeks, Claire saw Noah 4 more times. They met for coffee on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, sitting in a cramped cafe while Noah told her stories about the weirdest repair jobs he'd ever handled. "Someone once brought me a lawnmower with a squirrel's nest inside the engine. I'm not kidding, there were babies." They took Maddie to a bookstore on Saturday, where Maddie spent an hour sprawled on the floor of the children's section, reading every book about dinosaurs she could find. Claire sat beside her, turning pages, listening to Maddie explain why the Brachiosaurus was her favorite, even though the T-Rex got all the attention. They had dinner at Noah's apartment, a small, cluttered space that smelled like coffee and cinnamon. Maddie set the table with intense concentration, placing napkins and forks with the precision of a surgeon. Noah cooked spaghetti, and it was the best meal Claire had eaten in years. Not because it was fancy, because it was real. And every time Claire left, every time she drove back to her penthouse and stepped out of her thrift store clothes and back into her real life, the weight of the lie got heavier. Marcus had stopped asking how the experiment was going. He'd noticed the change in her, the way she checked her phone more often, the way she smiled at messages that had nothing to do with quarterly earnings or board meetings. "You're seeing him again," Marcus said one afternoon, not a question. "Yes," Claire admitted, "and you still haven't told him." "No." Marcus didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, "You know this is going to blow up, right? It always does." "I know. So why are you still doing it?" Claire didn't have an answer. Or maybe she did, and she was too afraid to say it out loud. Because for the first time in her life, someone looked at her and didn't see a CEO, didn't see money, didn't see power. They just saw her. And she didn't want to let that go. Bitem. It was a Thursday evening when everything started to unravel. Claire was at Noah's apartment again, sitting on the couch while Maddie showed her a new drawing, a purple stegosaurus wearing a crown. "It's a princess dinosaur," Maddie explained, "because dinosaurs can be princesses too." "I love it," Claire said, and she wasn't lying. Noah came out of the kitchen, carrying 2 mugs of tea. He handed one to Claire, then sat down beside her. "So," he said, his voice casual but his eyes serious. "I've been thinking." Claire's stomach dropped. "About what?" "About us. About where this is going." "Oh." Claire's hands tightened around the mug. "I really like you, Claire," Noah said, "and I think Maddie does too. Which is a big deal because she doesn't warm up to people easily, But I also need to know if you're in this for real. Claire's throat closed. Because if you are, Noah continued, then I want to introduce you to my family, my parents, my sister. I want you to be part of my life. But if you're not ready for that, if this is just casual for you, then I need to know. For Maddie's sake. Claire stared at him. He was looking at her with so much trust, so much hope, and all she could think was, he has no idea who I am. I'm in this, Claire heard herself say. I promise. Noah's face broke into a relieved smile. He reached over and squeezed her hand. Good, because I was starting to think I was the only one feeling like this. Claire forced herself to smile back, but inside her mind was screaming. She was in too deep, and she had no idea how to get out. That night, Claire lay in her penthouse bed staring at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed. A text from Noah. Thanks for tonight. Maddie's already asking when you're coming over again. I think she's adopted you. Claire's chest ached. She typed out a response. I had a great time. Tell Maddie I can't wait to see her Princess Dinosaur collection. Noah replied immediately. She's going to hold you to that. Claire set her phone down and closed her eyes. She thought about Maddie's laugh, about Noah's steady, kind smile, about the way they made her feel like she belonged somewhere. And she thought about the lie that was holding it all together. She didn't sleep that night. And when morning came, she still didn't have an answer. But she knew one thing for certain. This couldn't last. Something was going to break. And when it did, it was going to destroy everything. The breaking point came on a Wednesday afternoon, 3 weeks and 2 days after Claire had promised Noah she was in this for real. She was in a board meeting on the 48th floor of Ashford Technologies headquarters, listening to her CFO drone on about quarterly projections when her phone vibrated in her lap. She glanced down, expecting another message from Marcus about scheduling conflicts. Instead, it was Noah. Emergency. Maddie's school called. She's sick. I'm stuck at the shop with a customer's car half torn apart. Can you pick her up? I know it's last minute. I'm sorry. Claire's heart stopped. She stared at the message, her mind racing through a dozen catastrophic scenarios at once. Pick up Maddie. From school. Where there would be teachers, administrators, other parents. Where someone might recognize her. Where the carefully constructed wall between Claire Ashford, CEO, and Claire the broke freelancer would come crashing down. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She should say no. Make an excuse. Tell him she was busy, unavailable, anything. But then she thought about Maddie. Small, trusting Maddie, with her purple sneakers and her dinosaur facts, sitting in the nurse's office, feeling miserable and scared, waiting for someone to come get her. Claire's thumbs moved before her brain could stop them. I'll be there in 20 minutes. What's the address? She stood up in the middle of her CFO's sentence. Every head in the conference room turned toward her. I have to go, Claire said, grabbing her bag. Family emergency. Marcus half rose from his chair, his expression startled. Ms. Ashford, we're in the middle of a... Reschedule it, Claire said, already halfway to the door. Whatever it is, it can wait. She was in the elevator before Marcus could respond, her heart hammering against her ribs. She texted her driver to meet her in the private garage, then immediately canceled and told him she'd drive herself. The Civic. She needed the Civic. She couldn't show up at Maddie's elementary school in a car that cost more than most teachers made in 3 years. 22 minutes later, Claire pulled into the parking lot of Riverside Elementary School, her hands shaking on the steering wheel. She'd changed in the car, a risky, awkward maneuver that involved pulling off her Armani blazer and shoving it under the seat, swapping her heels for the ratty sneakers she kept in the trunk for exactly these situations. She checked her reflection in the rearview mirror. Passable. She looked tired, frazzled, like someone who'd just gotten off a shift at a job that didn't pay enough. Perfect. She walked into the main office, where a woman with bifocals and a cardigan covered in cat pins looked up from her computer. Can I help you? I'm here to pick up Maddie Brooks, Claire said, keeping her voice steady. Her father called. She's sick. The woman's expression softened immediately. Oh, poor thing. She's been asking for her dad for the past hour. Claire's mind went blank. She hadn't thought this through. What was she supposed to say? I'm his girlfriend sounded too official. I'm a friend sounded too distant. I'm Claire, she said finally. I'm helping out. The woman nodded, pulling up something on her computer. I'll need to see your ID. Standard procedure. Claire's stomach dropped. ID, of course. She reached into her bag, her fingers brushing against her wallet. Inside was her driver's license, with her real name, Claire Ashford. If this woman looked at it closely, if she recognized the name, if she Googled it out of curiosity later, "Here," Claire said, handing it over with a silent prayer that the woman was as overworked and underpaid as most school staff and wouldn't bother to scrutinize it. The woman glanced at the ID, typed something into her system, and handed it back. Room 104, down the hall, second door on the left. Claire exhaled. Thank you. She found Maddie sitting on a cot in the nurse's office, clutching a stuffed triceratops and looking absolutely miserable. Her face was pale, her curls flattened against her forehead with sweat. Claire? Maddie's voice was small, surprised. Hey, kiddo, Claire said, crouching down beside the cot. Your dad got stuck at work, so I'm your backup. How are you feeling? My tummy hurts, Maddie said, her lower lip trembling, and I threw up, twice. I heard. That's no fun. Claire brushed a curl away from Maddie's forehead, the gesture instinctive, automatic. Come on, let's get you home. Maddie nodded, sliding off the cot and reaching for Claire's hand. Her small fingers wrapped around Claire's, trusting and warm, and Claire felt something crack open inside her chest, something that had been sealed shut for so long she'd forgotten it was there. They walked out to the parking lot together, Maddie moving slowly, her free hand pressed against her stomach. Claire helped her into the back seat of the Civic, buckled her in, and handed her the Triceratops. If you need to throw up again, just tell me and I'll pull over, okay? Okay, Maddie said weakly. Claire drove carefully, keeping an eye on Maddie in the rearview mirror. The little girl leaned her head against the window, her eyes half closed, looking so small and fragile that Claire's throat tightened. When they pulled up to Noah's apartment, Claire helped Maddie out of the car and up the stairs. Noah had texted her the code to the lockbox where he kept the spare key, and she let them in, guiding Maddie straight to the couch. Do you want some water? Claire asked. Maddie nodded. Claire went into the kitchen, small, cluttered, with dinosaur magnets covering the fridge and a coffee mug in the sink that said, World's Okayest Dad. She filled a glass with water and brought it back to the couch. Maddie took a small sip, then set it down on the coffee table. Will you stay with me? Claire hesitated. She should say no. She should call Noah, tell him Maddie was home safe, and leave before this got any more complicated. But Maddie was looking at her with those wide, hopeful eyes, and Claire couldn't do it. Yeah, Claire said softly. I'll stay. She sat down on the couch beside Maddie, and the little girl immediately curled up against her side, her head resting on Claire's shoulder. Claire froze for a moment, unsure, then carefully wrapped an arm around Maddie's small frame. They sat like that for a long time, Maddie dozing fitfully, Claire staring at the wall, feeling the weight of the lie pressing down on her like a physical thing. This wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't supposed to care this much. She wasn't supposed to feel like this little girl's well-being mattered more than a quarterly earnings report or a board meeting or anything else in her meticulously controlled life. But she did, and that terrified her. Noah came home 2 hours later, bursting through the door with wild eyes and a grease-stained shirt. Is she okay? He asked immediately, his gaze landing on Maddie, still curled up against Claire on the couch. She's okay, Claire said quietly. She threw up at school, but she's been resting. I think it's just a stomach bug. Noah exhaled, his shoulders sagging with relief. He crossed the room and knelt down in front of the couch, brushing his hand over Maddie's forehead. Hey, baby girl, he said softly. How are you feeling? Maddie stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Dad? I'm here. I'm sorry it took so long. It's okay. Claire stayed with me. Noah looked up at Claire, and the expression on his face was so full of gratitude, so full of something deeper that Claire couldn't quite name, that she had to look away. Thank you, Noah said, his voice rough. I don't know what I would have done if... It's fine, Claire said quickly, standing up. I'm glad I could help. Stay for dinner, Noah said, standing as well. Please, it's the least I can do. Claire should have said no. She should have left right then, gone back to her penthouse, put distance between herself and this life that didn't belong to her. But she stayed. They ate chicken noodle soup, canned because Noah admitted he had no idea how to make it from scratch, and watched a nature documentary about dinosaurs that Maddie had seen at least a dozen times, but still insisted was the best one ever. Maddie fell asleep halfway through, her head in Claire's lap, and Noah carried her to bed without waking her. When he came back to the living room, he sat down beside Claire, close enough that their shoulders touched. "She really loves you," Noah said quietly. Claire's throat tightened. "I love her too." The words were out before she could stop them, and the worst part was, they were true. Noah smiled, soft and warm. "I'm really glad you're in our lives, Claire." Claire forced herself to smile back, even though it felt like her chest was caving in. That night, after she finally left Noah's apartment and drove back to her penthouse, she stood in her closet and stared at the thrift store clothes hanging beside the designer ones. 2 lives, 2 identities. One real, one fake. Except she wasn't sure anymore which was which. The next morning, Claire woke up to a text from Noah. "Maddie's feeling better. She wants to know if you can come to her school's fall festival this Saturday. I know it's not exactly glamorous, but she's been talking about it for weeks, and she really wants you there." Claire stared at the message. A school festival with other parents, other families, people who might ask questions, people who might recognize her. She should say no. She typed, "I'll be there." Saturday came too fast. Claire dressed carefully, jeans, a plain sweater, the same ratty sneakers. She braided her hair to make herself look younger, less polished. She left her watch at home, her jewelry, anything that might give her away. The festival was exactly what Claire expected. A chaotic mess of homemade booths, screaming children, and the smell of popcorn and cotton candy. She met Noah and Maddie near the entrance, and Maddie immediately grabbed her hand. "You came!" Maddie bounced on her toes, her purple coat flashing in the autumn sunlight. "Come on, we have to go to the face painting booth first. I want to be a dinosaur." Claire let herself be dragged through the crowd, Noah following behind with an amused smile. They waited in line for face painting, where a tired-looking teenager transformed Maddie into a green and purple stegosaurus with scales painted across her cheeks. "Your turn," Maddie said, turning to Claire with a mischievous grin. "Oh, I don't think—" "Please?" Maddie widened her eyes in a way that should have been illegal. Claire sighed. "Fine, but nothing too crazy." 10 minutes later, Claire had a small butterfly painted on her cheekbone, and Maddie was declaring it the prettiest thing ever. They wandered through the festival, playing ring toss and fishing for plastic ducks, and eating terrible carnival food that Claire's nutritionist would have had a heart attack over. And somewhere in the middle of it all, somewhere between Maddie's laughter and Noah's steady presence beside her, Claire forgot to be afraid. She forgot about the lie. She forgot about the penthouse and the board meetings and the carefully constructed empire she'd built. She just existed as Claire. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, just a woman spending time with people she cared about. It was the happiest she'd been in years. And then she saw him, a man in his 50s standing near the bake sale booth, wearing an expensive wool coat that didn't belong at an elementary school carnival. He was staring at her, his expression shifting from surprise to recognition to something calculating. David Hemmings, one of her company's biggest investors. A man who'd sat across from her in a dozen meetings, who'd shaken her hand at galas and fundraisers and corporate events. A man who knew exactly who she was. Claire's blood turned to ice. Their eyes met across the crowded festival ground. David's mouth curved into a small, knowing smile. He started walking toward her. "Claire?" Noah's voice cut through her panic. He was looking at her with concern. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Claire's mind raced. She could run. She could grab Noah and Maddie and make some excuse about needing to leave. She could... "Claire Ashford," David said, arriving in front of them with his hand extended. "What a surprise. I didn't expect to see you here." The world tilted. Noah's expression shifted, confusion flickering across his face. "I'm sorry, do you two know each other?" David's smile widened, oblivious to the grenade he'd just thrown. "Know each other? Claire's one of the most brilliant CEOs I've ever worked with. Ashford Technologies is—" "I think you have me confused with someone else," Claire said, her voice sharp, desperate. My name is Claire Montgomery. David's eyebrows rose. Montgomery? But I just saw you last week at the board meeting. You presented the Q3 projections yourself. Noah went very still beside her. Claire felt the ground crumbling beneath her feet. I don't know what you're talking about. David looked between her and Noah, and something in his expression shifted. Understanding dawning, uncomfortable and awkward. Oh, I see. I apologize. I must have... I'm sorry. Wrong person. He backed away quickly, disappearing into the crowd, but the damage was done. Noah was staring at her, really staring at her. Dad? Maddie tugged on his hand, her face paint smudging. What's wrong? Nothing, baby, Noah said, his voice tight. Why don't you go play on the swings for a few minutes? I need to talk to Claire. But, Maddie, please. The sharpness in his tone made Maddie flinch. She looked between them, confused and worried, then slowly walked toward the playground. Noah waited until she was out of earshot. Then he turned back to Claire. Who was that? Nobody, Claire said, her voice shaking. Just someone who confused me with... Don't, Noah said quietly. Don't lie to me again. The word again hit like a slap. Noah! That man knew your name. Your real name. He talked about board meetings and Q3 projections and... Noah's jaw tightened. Who are you? Claire opened her mouth, closed it. She could feel everything she'd built with him, every moment, every smile, every quiet evening on his couch, shattering like glass. I'm Claire, she said weakly. Claire who? Noah's voice was rising now, drawing looks from nearby parents. Because I don't think you're a broke freelance designer, are you? Claire's eyes stung. I wanted to tell you. When? Noah's voice cracked. When were you going to tell me? After I introduced you to my parents? After Maddie got even more attached to you? After I... He stopped, running a hand through his hair. I told you about my wife. I told you things I don't tell anyone. I let you into my daughter's life, and you've been lying to me this whole time? I'm sorry, Claire whispered. I'm so sorry. Sorry for what? For lying? Or for getting caught? The words were like a knife to the chest. Please, Claire said, reaching for his arms. Let me explain. Noah pulled away from her touch. I don't want to hear it. Not right now. Not in front of Maddie. He turned and walked toward the playground where Maddie was sitting on a swing, watching them with worried eyes. Claire stood frozen, watching Noah scoop Maddie into his arms and carry her toward the parking lot. Maddie looked back over his shoulder, her small hand reaching out toward Claire. Claire? Her voice was small, confused. Where are you going? Aren't you coming with us? Noah didn't answer. He just kept walking. And Claire stood there in the middle of the fall festival with a butterfly painted on her cheek and watched them disappear. She didn't cry. Not there, surrounded by families and laughter and the smell of popcorn. She walked back to the Honda Civic, got in, and drove. Not to the penthouse, not to the office, just drove. She ended up at a park on the outskirts of the city, sitting on a bench overlooking a lake. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and all Claire could think about was the look on Noah's face when he'd asked her who she was, like she was a stranger, like everything they'd shared had been a lie. And it had been, hadn't it? Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Where are you? The Hartford meeting is in an hour. They're waiting. Claire stared at the message. Hartford, right. She was supposed to be negotiating a merger with Hartford Industries tonight. A deal worth $300 million. The kind of thing that would make headlines, boost stock prices, cement her reputation as one of the most successful CEOs in the tech industry. She typed back. Cancel it. Marcus called immediately. Claire answered. Cancel it? Marcus's voice was incredulous. Claire, this is Hartford. We've been working on this for 6 months. You can't just cancel it, Claire repeated. Reschedule. Tell them I'm sick. I don't care. I can't do this tonight. There was a long pause. Then Marcus said, very quietly, What happened? Claire's throat tightened. He found out. Noah? Yeah, Marcus sighed. I'm sorry. Don't be. You warned me. That doesn't mean I wanted to be right. Another pause. What are you going to do? Claire looked out at the lake, at the darkening sky, at the world that suddenly felt too big and too empty all at once. I don't know, she said honestly. I don't know. She hung up and sat there until the sun disappeared completely and the stars came out, cold and distant. Then she drove home. The penthouse felt different when she walked in. Too big, too empty. Too much like a museum and not enough like a place where people actually lived. Claire stood in her closet and looked at the thrift store clothes hanging beside the designer ones. She pulled out the cardigan she'd worn on her first date with Noah, the one with the missing button and the pilled sleeves, and held it against her chest. She'd bought it specifically to look poor, to look like someone who couldn't afford better, to test men, to watch them fail, to prove to herself that nobody would love her without her money. But Noah had. Noah had covered her dinner without hesitation. He'd invited her into his life, into his daughter's life, without asking what she could offer him in return. He looked at her like she was enough, exactly as she was, and she'd lied to him. Claire sank down onto the floor of her closet, surrounded by clothes worth more than most people's cars, and finally let herself cry. She cried for the life she'd been pretending to live, for the connection she'd found and then destroyed, for Maddie's small hand reaching out as Noah carried her away, for the look of betrayal on Noah's face. She cried until there was nothing left. Then she got up, washed her face, and did what she always did when everything fell apart. She went back to work. The next week was a blur. Claire threw herself into the merger negotiations, the board meetings, the endless stream of emails and conference calls that filled her days and kept her from thinking about Noah and Maddie. Marcus watched her with worried eyes but didn't say anything. He just kept her schedule full, kept the coffee coming, and made sure she ate at least one meal a day. On Thursday, Claire was in her office reviewing contracts when her assistant knocked on the door. "Ms. Ashford, there's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's urgent." Claire didn't look up from her laptop. "Tell them to schedule through Marcus. He says his name is Noah Brooks." Claire's head snapped up. Noah was standing in her office doorway, looking completely out of place in his flannel shirt and work boots, surrounded by glass and steel and the trappings of wealth he'd never known she had. He was holding something in his hands, a small purple shoe. Maddie's shoe. "She left it in your car," Noah said quietly. "She's been crying for it every night." Claire stood up slowly, her heart hammering. "Noah, Don't," he said, his voice flat. "I'm not here to talk. I'm just here to get Maddie's shoe and to tell you that you need to stop texting me." Claire flinched. She'd sent him a dozen messages over the past week. Apologies, explanations, pleas for him to just let her talk to him. He hadn't responded to any of them. "Please," Claire said, "just 5 minutes. Let me explain." "Explain what?" Noah's voice was sharp now, all the warmth she'd loved stripped away. "Explain why you lied to me for weeks? Explain why you pretended to be someone you're not? Explain why you let my daughter get attached to you when you were just, what, playing a game?" "It wasn't a game," Claire said, her voice breaking. "Not with you, not with Maddie." Noah laughed, bitter and cold. "Right, so what was it? Research? Some kind of social experiment? Were you going to write a book about how poor people react when they think they're dating someone in their league?" The accusation hit like a physical blow. "No, Noah, please, it wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" Noah took a step forward, and Claire saw the pain beneath the anger, raw and bleeding. "Because from where I'm standing, you lied to me about everything. Your name, your job, your life. You sat in my apartment and ate my food and met my daughter and let me fall for you, and the whole time you were lying." "I'm sorry," Claire whispered. "I'm so sorry." Do you even understand what you did?" Noah's voice cracked. "Maddie trusted you. She doesn't trust people easily, not after her mom died. But she trusted you. And now I have to explain to a 7-year-old why Claire isn't coming over anymore, why she can't see you again, and I don't even know what to tell her because I don't understand it myself." Tears streamed down Claire's face. "I never meant to hurt her. I never meant to hurt either of you." "But you did," Noah said simply. He set the purple shoe down on Claire's desk, a small bright spot of color in the sterile white office. Maddie asked me to tell you something. She wanted me to tell you that she still loves you and she hopes you're not sad. Claire's chest cracked open. Noah. Goodbye, Claire. He turned toward the door, but wait, please. Claire moved around the desk, reaching for him. Please, just let me try to fix this. Noah stopped, but he didn't turn around. You can't fix this. You can't fix trust once it's broken. My wife taught me that before she died. She made me promise that I'd never let anyone into Maddie's life who wasn't completely honest with us. Because Maddie's already lost one person she loved. She can't go through that again. I would never leave her, Claire said desperately. I love her. I love both of you. Noah finally turned around, and the look on his face made Claire's words die in her throat. You don't get to say that, he said quietly. You don't get to say you love us when everything you told us was a lie. Love is built on truth, Claire, and I don't even know who you are. He walked out. Claire stood in her office, staring at the purple shoe on her desk, and felt the last piece of her heart shatter completely. Claire picked up the purple shoe with shaking hands. It was small, worn at the toe from Maddie's endless running, with a dinosaur sticker peeling off the side. She pressed it against her chest and sank into her office chair, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over a city she owned pieces of but had never felt more disconnected from. Marcus appeared in the doorway moments later, his expression carefully neutral. I saw him leave. Are you okay? No, Claire said, her voice hollow. I'm not. Marcus closed the door behind him and sat down across from her desk. He didn't say anything, just waited. It was one of the things Claire valued most about him. He knew when to push and when to simply be present. He's right, Claire said finally, staring at the shoe in her lap. I don't even know why I did it anymore. At the beginning, it made sense. I was tired of men who only saw my money. I wanted to know if anyone could care about me without it. But with Noah, her voice broke. With Noah, it stopped being an experiment and became something real. And I kept lying anyway because I was terrified that if he knew the truth, he'd look at me differently. And now he does look at you differently, Marcus said quietly. Now he doesn't look at me at all. Claire set the shoe on her desk next to her laptop, the contrast almost painful. Childhood innocence beside corporate power. I lost them both, Maddie and Noah, and I deserve it. Marcus leaned forward. What are you going to do? Claire looked up at him, her eyes red and swollen. What can I do? He made it clear he doesn't want to see me again. He doesn't trust me, and he's right not to. So that's it? You're just giving up? I'm not giving up. I'm respecting his boundaries. That's what you do when you love someone. You let them go if that's what they need. Marcus studied her for a long moment. You know what I think? I think you're scared. I think you're using his anger as an excuse not to fight for this, because fighting would mean being vulnerable, and you haven't been truly vulnerable in years. Claire flinched. That's not fair. Isn't it? You built this entire company on being fearless, on taking risks, on refusing to accept no as an answer. But when it comes to your personal life, you run the first time things get hard. I didn't run. He left. Because you lied to him for weeks. But he came here, Claire. He brought his daughter's shoe to your office. Do you know how hard that must have been for him? To walk into your world, to see exactly how big the lie was, and still show up because his daughter was crying? Marcus paused. He didn't have to do that. He could have thrown the shoe away. He could have told Maddie it was lost. But he came here. That means something. Claire stared at him. It means he wanted to return her shoe. No, it means he needed to see you, even if he's too hurt to admit it right now. Hope flickered in Claire's chest, dangerous and fragile. You think so? I think you need to stop hiding behind your fear and figure out who you really are. Not Claire the CEO, not Claire the fake broke woman. Just Claire. Because until you know that, you can't expect anyone else to know it either. Marcus stood up and headed for the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I've worked for you for 8 years. I've seen you negotiate billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. I've seen you face down hostile boards and aggressive competitors, but I've never seen you as happy as you were these past few weeks. Don't throw that away without a fight. He left, closing the door softly behind him. Claire sat alone in her office as the sun set over the city, painting her glass walls in shades of gold and crimson. She thought about Marcus's words, about Noah's pain, about Maddie asking if Claire was sad. She picked up her phone and scrolled through her messages with Noah. Dozens of texts she'd sent that had gone unanswered. Apologies and explanations that felt hollow now, reading them back. She deleted them all, started fresh. I'm not going to text you anymore. You asked me to stop and I will. But I need you to know something. I was wrong. Not just about lying, about everything. I was wrong to test people. I was wrong to think love could be measured by how someone treats you when you have nothing. Real love isn't about what you have or don't have. It's about who you are. And I lost sight of who I was a long time ago. I'm trying to find my way back. Not for you, for me. Because you and Maddie deserve better than the person I was pretending to be. You deserve the truth. I'm sorry I couldn't give you that. Tell Maddie I love her. And I'm sorry. She hit send before she could second guess herself. Then she turned off her phone, placed it face down on the desk, and stared at Maddie's purple shoe until the office lights automatically shut off around her. The next 3 days passed in a haze. Claire went through the motions, meetings, calls, decisions that affected thousands of employees and millions of dollars. But inside she felt numb, hollow, like she was watching her own life from a distance. On Monday morning, she was reviewing acquisition proposals when her phone rang. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Ms. Ashford? A woman's voice, professional but concerned. This is Principal Morrison from Riverside Elementary School. I'm calling because we have Madeline Brooks in our office and we can't reach her father. You're listed as an emergency contact. Claire's heart stopped. What? Is Maddie okay? She's not hurt, but she's very upset. She ran out of her classroom during recess and we found her hiding in the supply closet. She won't tell us what's wrong and she's asking for you. I'll be there in 15 minutes, Claire said, already grabbing her keys. She made it in 12, not bothering to change out of her tailored suit and heels. She ran into the main office, breathless, and found Principal Morrison waiting. Where is she? This way. The principal led her down a hallway to a small conference room. Through the window, Claire could see Maddie sitting in a chair, her knees pulled up to her chest, her face buried in her arms. Claire opened the door, and Maddie's head shot up. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her face blotchy and red. Claire? Maddie's voice was so small, so broken, that Claire felt her chest crack open all over again. Hey, sweetheart. Claire crossed the room and knelt in front of Maddie's chair. What's wrong? What happened? Maddie launched herself at Claire, wrapping her small arms around Claire's neck and sobbing into her shoulder. Claire held her tight, one hand cradling the back of Maddie's head, the other rubbing circles on her back. It's okay, Claire murmured. I've got you. You're okay. I'm sorry, Maddie choked out between sobs. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry for what, baby? You didn't do anything wrong. Yes, I did. I made you go away. Dad's been sad and he won't talk about you, and I know it's my fault because I got sick, and you had to come get me, and then that man said your name wrong and Dad got mad, and now you're gone, and it's all my fault. No. Claire pulled back just enough to cup Maddie's tear-stained face in her hands. Maddie, look at me. None of this is your fault. Do you hear me? Not one bit. But you left. I didn't want to leave. I never wanted to leave you. Then why did you? Maddie's voice cracked. Why did you go away? Claire's throat tightened. How did you explain adult mistakes to a 7-year-old? How did you tell a child that you'd been too scared and too damaged to be honest? I made a mistake, Claire said carefully. A big one. I wasn't honest with your dad about some important things, and that hurt him. And when you hurt someone, sometimes they need space to figure out if they can forgive you. But I forgive you, Maddie said, her small hands clutching Claire's jacket. I forgive you right now. Can't that be enough? Claire's vision blurred with tears. I wish it could be, sweetheart. I really do. Don't you love us anymore? The question shattered what was left of Claire's composure. I love you so much. I love you and your dad more than anything in the world. That's never going to change. Then why can't you come home? Home. Maddie had called Noah's small, cluttered apartment home, not Claire's penthouse with its designer furniture and panoramic views. That tiny space with dinosaur magnets and burnt pancakes, that was home. And Claire had lost it. Before she could answer, the door opened and Noah burst in, his face pale with panic. "Maddie!" He stopped short when he saw Claire holding his daughter. "Dad!" Maddie pulled away from Claire and ran to Noah, who scooped her up immediately. "Are you okay?" "Baby, you scared me. The school called and said you were upset and you ran out of class." Noah's eyes moved from Maddie to Claire, and his expression hardened. "What are you doing here?" "They called me," Claire said, standing up slowly. "I was listed as an emergency contact and they couldn't reach you. I was under a car. My phone was in the office." Noah's jaw tightened. "I'll have them remove you from the list." "Noah, please, not here." His voice was sharp, a warning. "Not in front of Maddie." Claire nodded, swallowing hard. "Right, I'm sorry." She moved toward the door, but Maddie twisted in Noah's arms, reaching for her. "No, don't go. Please don't go again." "Maddie." Noah tried to soothe her, but she was crying again, harder now. "I don't want her to leave. Dad, please, make her stay." Noah's face crumpled. He looked at Claire, and for just a moment she saw past his anger to the pain underneath, deep and raw and bleeding. "I can't, baby girl," he said softly, holding Maddie tighter. "I'm sorry, but I can't." Principal Morrison stepped into the doorway, her expression sympathetic but firm. "Mr. Brooks, why don't we step into my office? I think we all need to have a conversation." 10 minutes later, Claire sat in a chair across from Noah, while Maddie stayed in the conference room with the school counselor. Principal Morrison sat behind her desk, hands folded, looking between them. "I want to be clear," she said gently. "Maddie is not in trouble, but this is the third time this week she's had an emotional episode at school. Her teacher says she's withdrawn in class, not participating like she usually does. And today she told the counselor that she feels responsible for someone leaving." The principal looked at Claire. "I'm assuming that someone is you?" Claire nodded, unable to speak. "Mr. Brooks," Principal Morrison continued, "I know this is a difficult situation, but whatever's happening at home is affecting Maddie at school. She needs stability. She needs to understand what's going on in a way that makes sense to her." Noah ran a hand through his hair, exhausted. "I've been trying to explain it to her, but she's 7. How do I explain that someone we trusted lied to us?" "With respect, Mr. Brooks, that's your perspective. From Maddie's perspective, someone she loves disappeared without explanation. And children tend to blame themselves when the adults in their lives can't resolve their conflicts." The words hit Noah like a physical blow. He closed his eyes. "I'm trying to protect her." "I know you are, but sometimes protecting our children means working through the hard things instead of avoiding them." Principal Morrison stood up. "I'll give you both some time to talk. Please use it." She left, closing the door behind her. The silence in the office was suffocating. Claire stared at her hands, at the expensive manicure and the rings she wore without thinking, all the visible markers of wealth she'd tried so hard to hide. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "I never meant for any of this to affect Maddie. If you had known what?" Noah's voice was tired, drained of anger. "That a 7-year-old might get attached to someone who spent weeks pretending to be part of our lives? What did you think was going to happen, Claire?" "I don't know. I wasn't thinking. Claire's voice cracked. "I just wanted someone to see me. Not my money, not my company. Just me." Noah leaned back in his chair, studying her. "And you thought the best way to do that was to lie?" "I thought it was the only way. Every man I'd ever dated, every relationship I'd ever had, it always came down to money. Either they wanted it, or they resented me for having it, or they tried to control it. I was tired of being valued for my bank account instead of who I am." Claire wiped at her eyes. "So I started testing people. I'd show up to dates pretending to be broke, and I'd watch them lose interest the second they realized I couldn't afford dinner or a nice dress. 27 times. 27 men who couldn't see past the surface." "And then you met me," Noah said quietly. "And then I met you. And you didn't flinch. You covered dinner like it was nothing. You invited me into your life, into Maddie's life, and you never asked what I could do for you. You just cared about me, about who I was. Claire's voice broke, and that terrified me. Because if you could care about me when you thought I had nothing, what would happen when you found out the truth? Would you still see me the same way? Or would I become just another rich woman you couldn't relate to? So you lied to avoid finding out the answer. I lied because I'm a coward. The admission felt like pulling shards of glass from her chest. I was so scared of losing what we had that I held on to the lie instead of risking the truth. And by the time I realized how wrong that was, it was too late. Noah was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer. Do you know what the worst part is? It's not that you're rich. It's not even that you lied about your job or your name. It's that you didn't trust me enough, to be honest. You made the choice for both of us about whether we could handle the truth. I know. I would have understood, Claire. If you told me on that first date, or the second, or even the third, if you'd just been honest about why you did it, I would have tried to understand. But you let me fall in love with someone who didn't exist. Claire's heart stopped. You were falling in love with me? Noah looked at her, and his eyes were full of grief. Yeah, I was. Past tense. The words landed like stones in deep water, sinking fast and pulling everything down with them. Noah, Don't. He held up a hand. I can't do this right now. I need to focus on Maddie. She's what matters. I know she should matter more than anything. She does matter more than anything. Claire stood up, her legs shaky. I'll go. I'll have the school remove me from her contact list. I won't interfere anymore. She made it to the door before Noah spoke again. Wait. Claire froze, her hand on the doorknob. Maddie's birthday is next week, Noah said, not looking at her. She's having a party at the park. Nothing fancy, just some kids from her class and a dinosaur cake. He paused. She's going to ask me if you can come, and I don't know what to tell her. Claire's chest tightened. What do you want me to say? I don't know. Noah finally looked up at her. Part of me wants you nowhere near us. But the bigger part, the part that has to watch my daughter cry herself to sleep every night asking why you left, that part thinks maybe seeing you one more time might give her closure. A proper goodbye. Is that what you want? A proper goodbye? Noah's silence was answer enough. Claire nodded, blinking back tears. Then I'll come. For Maddie. To say goodbye properly. She left before he could respond, walking past the conference room where Maddie was drawing pictures with the counselor, past Principal Morrison, who watched her with sympathetic eyes, out into the bright afternoon sun that felt too cheerful for the weight in her chest. She sat in her car, the Civic, not the Bentley, because some habits were hard to break, and let herself cry. Not the quiet, dignified tears she'd shed in her penthouse, loud, ugly, body-shaking sobs that left her gasping for air. Her phone rang. Marcus. Where are you? The Hartford people are here for the rescheduled meeting. Tell them I'll be there in 20 minutes. Are you okay? You sound... I'm fine. Just give me 20 minutes. She hung up, fixed her makeup as best she could, and drove back to the office. Back to boardrooms and conference calls and decisions that affected thousands of people. Back to being Claire Ashford, CEO, billionaire, one of Forbes' most powerful women. Back to being alone. The week crawled by. Claire threw herself into work with a ferocity that worried even Marcus. She stayed at the office until midnight, came in before dawn, filled every moment with meetings and strategy sessions, and anything that would keep her from thinking about Noah's words. I was falling in love with you, past tense. On Friday afternoon, Marcus knocked on her door. The Hartford deal closed, $300 million. The board is thrilled. Good, Claire said, not looking up from her laptop. Claire, you need to go home. You've been here for 16 hours straight. I'm fine. No, you're not. You're running yourself into the ground. I said I'm fine, Marcus. He sighed, then set something on her desk. A small wrapped gift with a tag that read, For Maddie. Claire stared at it. What is this? Tomorrow's her birthday party. I figured you'd want to bring a gift. Claire's throat tightened. She'd been trying not to think about the party, trying not to imagine what it would feel like to stand in front of Noah and Maddie and say goodbye for real. I don't know if I should go, she said quietly. You promised you would. I know, but Claire, Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. Maddie's been asking about you. She deserves a proper goodbye, even if it hurts. Maybe especially because it hurts. Claire picked up the wrapped gift. Inside was a book about dinosaurs. Not a children's picture book, but a real paleontology guide with detailed illustrations and scientific facts. The kind of book Maddie would treasure. "Thank you," Claire whispered. "You're welcome. Now go home. Get some sleep. And tomorrow, be brave." Saturday came too soon. Claire stood in front of her closet again, but this time the choice felt impossible for different reasons. She couldn't show up in designer clothes. That would be rubbing her wealth in Noah's face. But she also couldn't show up in the thrift store outfit. That would be a reminder of the lie. She settled on jeans and a simple blouse. Her own clothes, but nothing flashy. She left her jewelry at home except for a simple watch. Expensive, but not ostentatiously so. She drove the Civic to the park, her hands shaking on the steering wheel. The party was exactly what Noah had described. A dozen kids running around, parents chatting near picnic tables, balloons tied to trees, and in the center of it all, Maddie in a purple dress with a dinosaur crown on her head. Claire parked far from the main area and sat in her car, watching. She could see Noah setting up the cake, talking to other parents, keeping one eye on Maddie as she played. He looked tired, strained. Claire almost drove away. Almost started the car and left without ever stepping out, convincing herself it would be easier for everyone. But then Maddie turned and saw her. The little girl's face lit up like sunrise, and she started running, purple dress flying, crown slipping sideways, arms outstretched. "Claire, you came!" Claire got out of the car just in time to catch Maddie as she launched herself forward. The little girl wrapped her arms around Claire's waist and held on tight. "I thought you weren't coming," Maddie said, her voice muffled against Claire's stomach. "Dad said you might not come." "I promised I would," Claire said, her voice thick. "And I keep my promises." Maddie pulled back and looked up at her, searching her face. "Are you going to leave again?" Claire's heart shattered. She knelt down so she was eye level with Maddie. "Can we talk about that in a little bit? Right now it's your birthday. You should be having fun with your friends." "But you're my friend too." "I am," Claire said, her eyes stinging. "I'll always be your friend." Maddie seemed satisfied with that answer. She grabbed Claire's hand and pulled her toward the party. "Come on, you have to meet everyone, and we're going to play dinosaur freeze tag, and Dad made a T-Rex cake with 3 layers. Claire let herself be dragged into the chaos of the birthday party. She met Maddie's friends, a blur of small faces and high-pitched voices. She helped set up the games. She watched Maddie blow out her candles and make a wish with her eyes squeezed shut tight. Through it all, Noah kept his distance. He was polite when they crossed paths, thanked her quietly when she helped clean up dropped cake plates, but he didn't really look at her, didn't let his guard down. And Claire understood. She'd broken something between them that couldn't be easily repaired. As the party wound down and parents started collecting their kids, Maddie came back to Claire, tugging her toward a quieter corner of the park. "I need to give you something," Maddie said seriously. "Sweetie, it's your birthday. I'm supposed to give you things." Claire handed her the wrapped book. Maddie's eyes went wide when she opened it. "This is a real science book. I thought you might like it. There's a whole chapter on stegosauruses. This is the best present ever." Maddie hugged the book, then set it carefully on a nearby bench. "But I still need to give you something." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I drew this for you. At school. When I was sad." Claire unfolded the paper with trembling hands. It was a child's drawing, 3 stick figures holding hands. One tall with long hair, one smaller with a hat, one tiny with curly scribbles for hair. Above them, Maddie had written in careful letters, "My family." Claire couldn't breathe. "That's you and me and Dad," Maddie explained, pointing to each figure. "I drew it because I wanted you to know you're part of my family, even if Dad says you can't come over anymore." A sob caught in Claire's throat. She pulled Maddie into a tight hug, pressing her face against the little girl's hair. "Thank you, sweetheart. This is the most special thing anyone's ever given me." "Do you really have to go away?" Maddie's voice was small, scared. Claire pulled back, forcing herself to look at Maddie, even though it felt like her chest was being crushed. "I have to let your dad decide what's best for you, and right now, he thinks that means I need to give you both some space." But I don't want space. I want you. I know, baby. I want you too. But sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and we have to deal with the consequences. I made a very big mistake, and now I have to respect your dad's decision. What mistake did you make? How did you explain betrayal to a 7-year-old? I wasn't honest with your dad about some important things, Claire said carefully, and that hurt him. And when you hurt someone you love, sometimes they need time to figure out if they can trust you again. But I trust you, Maddie insisted. I'm so glad you do. That means everything to me. Then stay. Please stay. Claire's vision blurred. I wish I could, sweetheart. I wish I could stay forever. Maddie started crying then. Not the loud, dramatic tears of a tantrum, but the quiet, devastating tears of a child's heartbreak. Claire held her close, rocking her gently, memorizing the weight of her in her arms, the smell of her strawberry shampoo, the way her small hands clutched at Claire's shirt. I love you, Claire whispered. I love you so much, Maddie. That's never going to change, no matter what happens. Do you understand? No matter where I am or how much time passes, I will always love you. I love you too, Maddie sobbed. They stayed like that until Maddie's tears slowed, until her breathing evened out, until Noah's voice cut through the moment. Maddie, it's time to go home. Maddie pulled back, wiping her eyes. She looked at her dad, then back at Claire. Can Claire come with us? Not today, baby girl. What about tomorrow? Noah's jaw tightened. We'll see. It was the gentlest no Claire had ever heard. Maddie looked devastated, but she nodded. She gave Claire one more tight hug, then slowly walked toward her father. Noah scooped her up, settling her on his hip, even though she was getting too big for it. Claire stood up, picking up Maddie's new book and handing it to Noah. For her, happy birthday, Maddie. Maddie clutched the book like a lifeline. Thank you, Claire. Noah looked at Claire for a long moment. Something flickered in his eyes, pain, regret, something that might have been longing, but then he looked away. Goodbye, Claire, he said quietly. Not, see you later. Not, we'll talk soon. Goodbye. Claire watched them walk away. Noah carrying Maddie, Maddie's head resting on his shoulder, both of them disappearing into the parking lot. And this time, when Claire got in her car, she didn't cry. She was too empty for tears. She just sat there, staring at the drawing Maddie had given her, at the 3 stick figures holding hands. My family. Claire started the car and drove away from the park, away from the last piece of the life she'd built with Noah and Maddie. And as the sun set behind her, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, she whispered into the empty car, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But there was no one left to hear it. Claire made it 3 blocks before she had to pull over. She parked the Civic in an empty lot behind a shuttered grocery store and pressed her forehead against the steering wheel, Maddie's drawing clutched in her hands. The paper was already wrinkled from her grip, the careful crayon lines smudging slightly. 3 stick figures. A family that would never be. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. How did it go? Claire stared at the message for a long time before responding. It's over. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. I'm sorry. Claire didn't respond. She set the phone down and looked at the drawing again. Maddie had drawn Claire taller than Noah, probably because 7-year-olds weren't great at proportions. She'd given Claire a smile, a wide, happy curve, and she'd colored her hair yellow even though Claire's was brown. In Maddie's world, Claire was sunshine-colored, someone who brought light. The irony was almost funny. Claire drove home on autopilot, her mind numb. When she got to her building, the doorman greeted her with his usual professional warmth, but she barely registered it. She rode the elevator up 62 floors, walked into her penthouse, and stood in the middle of her living room, surrounded by furniture that cost more than most people's cars, art that belonged in museums, windows that looked out over a city she could buy pieces of, and felt nothing. She walked to her bedroom, opened her closet, and pulled out the thrift store cardigan. The one with the missing button, the one she'd worn on her first date with Noah. She should throw it away, burn it, erase every physical reminder of the lies she'd lived. Instead, she put it on. Then she climbed into bed, pulled Maddie's drawing close to her chest, and finally let herself break completely. The days that followed blurred together. Claire went to work, sat through meetings, made decisions that would affect thousands of people's livelihoods. On the outside, she was the same Claire Ashford who'd built an empire from nothing. Sharp, focused, relentless. On the inside, she was hollow. Marcus noticed, of course. He always noticed. "You need to take some time off," he said one afternoon, sitting across from her in her office. "When's the last time you took a vacation?" "I don't need a vacation. I need to work." "Claire, I'm fine, Marcus." Her voice was sharp enough to cut. "Drop it." He held up his hands in surrender but didn't leave. Instead, he pulled something up on his tablet and slid it across the desk to her. It was a news article. Local interest piece from a neighborhood blog. Local mechanic offers free car repairs to single parents in need. Claire's heart stopped. The photo showed Noah in his garage smiling at the camera, grease on his hands and a wrench in his belt loop. The article described how he'd started a program 3 months ago. One Saturday a month, he offered free basic maintenance and repairs to single parents who were struggling financially. Oil changes, brake repairs, tire rotations, whatever they needed, no questions asked. "He's been doing this since before you met him," Marcus said quietly. "I found it while doing some research. Thought you should see it." Claire stared at the photo, at Noah's genuine smile, at the pride in his eyes. This was who he was. Not someone who measured worth by bank accounts or social status. Someone who saw need and tried to fill it. Someone who gave without expecting anything in return. Someone she'd lied to for weeks. "Why are you showing me this?" Claire's voice was barely a whisper. "Because you need to remember that the man you fell in love with is real. And maybe, just maybe, he's still out there wondering if the woman he fell in love with was real too." Claire closed the tablet and pushed it back across the desk. "It doesn't matter. He made his choice." Did he? Or did he make the only choice he felt he could make to protect his daughter? "What's the difference?" Marcus leaned forward. "The difference is that one is final and the other is a door left open just a crack. You're the one deciding it's locked." Claire didn't respond. She couldn't. Because Marcus was right, and she hated him for it. That night, Claire did something she hadn't done in years. She left work at a reasonable hour, drove to a quiet bookstore on the edge of town, and spent 2 hours wandering the aisles with no purpose except to exist somewhere that didn't require her to be Claire Ashford, CEO. She found herself in the children's section, running her fingers along the spines of books about dinosaurs and space and adventure. She thought about Maddie sprawled on the floor of a different bookstore, reading every book she could reach, explaining why the Brachiosaurus was underrated. A woman with a toddler on her hip smiled at her. "Looking for something for your daughter?" The words hit like a punch. "No, I don't have a daughter." "Oh, niece then? Granddaughter?" "No, just browsing." The woman nodded and moved on, and Claire stood there in the children's section of a bookstore, surrounded by colorful covers and happy endings, feeling more alone than she'd ever felt in her life. She bought 3 dinosaur books anyway. She didn't know why. She had no one to give them to. But she carried them to the register, paid cash so the purchase wouldn't show up on any credit card statement Marcus might see, and took them home. They sat on her coffee table for 3 days, a bright spot of color in her monochrome life, before she finally gathered the courage to do what she'd been too afraid to attempt. She packed them carefully in a box with Maddie's name on it, added a card that said simply, "For your collection. Love, Claire." Drove to Noah's apartment building, left the box with the building manager, and walked away before she could change her mind. She didn't know if Maddie would ever get it, didn't know if Noah would throw it away unopened, but at least she'd tried. It was something. A week passed, then another. Claire fell into a rhythm. Work, home, sleep, repeat. She stopped wearing the thrift store clothes, stopped pretending to be anyone other than who she was. If she was going to be alone, she might as well be honestly alone. On a Thursday evening, 3 weeks after Maddie's birthday party, Claire's assistant buzzed her office. "Ms. Ashford, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent. Tell them to schedule through Marcus. She says her name is Jessica Brooks, Noah Brooks's sister." Claire's breath caught. "Send her in." The woman who walked through her door was in her early 40s, with Noah's same warm eyes but sharper edges. She looked around the office with an expression that was hard to read, not quite judgment, not quite curiosity. "Ms. Ashford," she said, not offering to shake hands. Thank you for seeing me. Of course. Please sit. Claire gestured to the chair across from her desk, her mind racing. Is everything okay? Noah and Maddie are fine, physically. Jessica sat down, her posture stiff. Emotionally is a different story. Claire's stomach dropped. What do you mean? I mean, my niece cries herself to sleep asking about you. I mean, my brother walks around like a ghost, going through the motions but not really living. I mean that whatever happened between you two didn't just affect you, it's destroying both of them. The words were delivered without malice, just flat honesty that somehow hurt worse than anger would have. I'm sorry, Claire said, her voice cracking. I never meant... I know what you meant. Noah told me the whole story, the dates, the tests, the lies. And I'll be honest, when he first told me, I wanted to come here and tear you apart. Jessica's eyes were hard. But then I watched my brother spend 3 weeks trying to convince himself he did the right thing. And I watched Maddie retreat into herself. And I realized something. What? You're both idiots. Claire blinked. Excuse me? You're both idiots, Jessica repeated. You for thinking the only way to find real love was to lie about who you are. And Noah for being so hurt by the lie that he can't see past it to the truth underneath. I don't understand. Jessica leaned forward. My brother is the most genuine person I know. He doesn't have a dishonest bone in his body, and that's beautiful, but it also means he can't comprehend why someone would lie about something so fundamental. He thinks you lied because you didn't trust him. But I've been watching you, Ms. Ashford. I've read about you. I've seen what you've built. And I don't think you lied because you didn't trust him. I think you lied because you didn't trust yourself. Claire's throat tightened. You don't know me. Maybe not. But I know what it's like to be scared. I know what it's like to protect yourself so hard that you push away the very things you need most. Jessica's expression softened slightly. My husband left me 5 years ago, took everything, the house, the savings, even our dog. And for years after that, I didn't let anyone get close. I tested every man I dated, looking for signs he was going to do the same thing. And you know what I found? What? Nothing, because I never gave anyone a real chance. I was so busy protecting myself from being hurt again that I forgot how to actually live. Jessica paused. You remind me of who I was back then. Someone so afraid of being valued for the wrong reasons that you made it impossible for anyone to value you for the right ones. Claire couldn't speak. The truth in Jessica's words was too sharp, too accurate. So here's why I'm here, Jessica continued. Not for you, for Maddie. That little girl loves you, really loves you, and watching her heart break because the adults in her life can't figure out their mess is killing me. What do you want me to do? Claire asked desperately. Noah made it clear. Noah is hurting and scared and trying to protect his daughter the only way he knows how, but he's also miserable. And I think if you gave him a reason to believe the real you is worth knowing, he might be willing to try again. He doesn't want to see me. Then make him see you anyway. Not as the billionaire CEO, not as the broke freelancer, as Claire, whoever the hell that is. Jessica stood up. I'm not saying it'll work, but I'm saying that if you actually love my brother and my niece the way you claim to, you owe it to all of you to try. She walked to the door, then paused. Maddie got your books, by the way. She sleeps with them under her pillow, cries when she reads the card. Jessica looked back at Claire. Don't give up on them. They haven't given up on you. Not really. Then she was gone, leaving Claire alone in her office with her thoughts spinning out of control. That night, Claire couldn't sleep. She paced her penthouse, Jessica's words echoing in her head. Make him see you anyway. The real you. But who was the real Claire? She'd spent so long playing roles, the ruthless CEO, the broke freelancer, the perfect daughter, the ambitious executive, that she wasn't sure she knew anymore. At 2 a.m, she pulled out her laptop and started writing. Not a business proposal or a strategy memo. Just words, thoughts, truths she'd never said out loud. She wrote about growing up poor, watching her mother work 3 jobs to keep them afloat. About building her company from nothing, driven by a desperate need to prove she was more than her circumstances. About the first man who'd loved her for her money and then left when she wouldn't give him more. About the second and the third, and the slow, creeping realization that her wealth was both her greatest achievement and her deepest curse. She wrote about the loneliness of success, about standing in rooms full of people who wanted things from her but never really saw her, about the night she'd decided to start testing men, convinced it was the only way to find someone real. She wrote about Noah, about the way he'd smiled at her on that first date, like she mattered just because she existed, about Maddie's wild curls and dinosaur facts and the way she'd curled into Claire's side like she belonged there, about the feeling of being part of something bigger than herself, more important than quarterly earnings or board meetings or any of the things she'd spent her life chasing. And she wrote about the fear. The bone-deep, paralyzing fear that if Noah knew the truth, he'd look at her differently, that the connection they'd built would shatter, that she'd lose the only real thing she'd ever had. By the time the sun rose, Claire had written 20 pages. She read through them once, her eyes burning with exhaustion and unshed tears. Then she did something crazy. She printed them out, put them in an envelope, and addressed it to Noah. She didn't overthink it, didn't second guess. She just drove to his apartment building before work, left the envelope with the same building manager who'd taken Maddie's books, and walked away before she could lose her nerve. What Noah did with it was up to him. 2 days passed, then 3. Claire heard nothing. She threw herself into work, trying not to check her phone every 5 minutes, trying not to imagine Noah reading her words and deciding she wasn't worth forgiving. On the 4th day, her phone rang at 8 p.m. Unknown number. Hello? Claire? A small voice, familiar. It's Maddie. Claire's heart stopped. Maddie? Sweetheart, is everything okay? Are you... I'm okay. I'm using Dad's phone. He doesn't know I'm calling. The words came out in a rush, whispered and urgent. I need to tell you something. What is it, baby? Dad read your letter, the one you left. He read it 3 times, and then he sat in the kitchen and cried. Claire's breath caught. He did? Yeah. And then I asked him why he was crying, and he said it was because he misses you, but he doesn't know if he can trust you anymore. Maddie's voice cracked. But Claire, I trust you. I trust you so much, and I think Dad does too. He's just scared. Oh, Maddie, I know I'm not supposed to call you. Dad said we needed space. But I miss you and I don't want space. I want you to come back. Maddie was crying now, quiet sobs that broke Claire's heart. Can you come back, please? Claire pressed her hand to her mouth, trying to keep her own sobs silent. Sweetheart, I want to, more than anything, but that's not my decision to make. Your dad has to... Then make him see. Maddie's voice rose. Make him see that you're sorry and you love us and you're not going to leave again. Maddie, I can't just... Yes, you can. You're smart and you're brave and you fixed my bike when the chain broke even though you didn't know how at first and... Maddie stopped abruptly. Dad's coming. I have to go. Maddie, wait. I love you, Claire. Don't give up on us. The line went dead. Claire stood in her penthouse, phone pressed to her ear, listening to the silence where Maddie's voice had been. Her chest felt like it was being crushed. Don't give up on us. Jessica's words came back to her. Make him see you anyway. And suddenly, Claire knew what she had to do. She grabbed her keys, didn't bother changing out of her work clothes, and drove. Not to Noah's apartment. She couldn't show up there unannounced, not after everything, but she knew where he'd be on a Saturday morning, the farmer's market. Claire parked the Civic 3 blocks away and walked, her heart hammering with each step. The market was as crowded as she remembered. Families, couples, vendors calling out prices. She scanned the crowd, looking for a tall man in a worn jacket, looking for a little girl with wild curls and purple shoes. She found them at a produce stand. Maddie was examining apples with intense concentration while Noah talked to the vendor. He looked tired, drawn, like he hadn't been sleeping well. Claire's courage almost failed her. She almost turned around and walked away. But then Maddie looked up and saw her. The little girl's face transformed, shock, joy, desperate hope, all cascading across her features. She tugged on Noah's sleeve. Dad, look. Noah turned, following Maddie's gaze. When his eyes landed on Claire, his expression went carefully blank. Claire forced herself to walk forward, even though every instinct screamed at her to run. She stopped a few feet away, close enough to see the dark circles under Noah's eyes, the tension in his shoulders. "Hi," she said, her voice barely audible over the market noise. "Claire!" Maddie started to rush forward, but Noah put a hand on her shoulder, holding her back. "What are you doing here?" His voice was flat, carefully controlled. "I needed to see you, both of you." Claire's hands were shaking. She shoved them in her pockets. "I know you said you needed space, and I've tried to respect that, but you're here anyway." Noah's jaw tightened. "Maddie, go pick out some strawberries. I'll be right there." "But Dad..." "Maddie, now." Maddie looked between them, her expression pleading, but she obeyed. She walked toward the berry stand a few vendors down, close enough to keep them in sight, but far enough to give them privacy. Noah turned back to Claire. "You can't keep doing this. You can't keep showing up and—" "I read your letter," he said, cutting her off. "The one you left, all 20 pages of it." Claire's breath caught. And it doesn't change anything." But his voice cracked on the words, betraying him. "I think it does," Claire said quietly. "I think it changes everything. Because for the first time, I was completely honest with you. No games, no tests, no lies. Just the truth about who I am and why I did what I did. The truth would have meant more before I fell in love with you." The admission hit like a physical blow. "Would have, so you don't—" "I don't know what I feel anymore," Noah said, his voice raw. "That's the problem, Claire. You made me question everything. Every moment we shared, every conversation, every time you smiled at me or held Maddie's hand, I don't know what was real and what was performance." "All of it was real," Claire said desperately. "The feelings were real, Noah. I was lying about my circumstances, but I was never lying about how I felt. How am I supposed to believe that?" "Because I'm here." Claire's voice rose, drawing looks from nearby shoppers. She lowered it, stepping closer. "Because I'm standing in front of you, in the middle of a farmer's market, begging you to give me another chance. Do you think I want to do this? Do you think this is easy for me? I've spent my entire adult life building walls to protect myself, and you knocked them down in 3 dates. You made me feel things I didn't think I was capable of feeling. You made me want things I'd convinced myself I didn't deserve." "Like what?" "Like a family," Claire whispered. "Like a home. Like someone who looks at me and sees me, not what I can do for them or what I'm worth on paper. You saw me, Noah, the real me. Even when I was lying about everything else, you saw something true." Noah's expression flickered. Pain, longing, conflict, all warring for dominance. "I don't know if that's enough." "Then what is? Tell me what I need to do and I'll do it." "I need to trust you again, and I don't know if I can." The words were like a knife to Claire's chest, but she forced herself to stand tall, to not break down, to say what needed to be said. "Then don't," she said. "Don't trust me. Not yet. I don't deserve it. But let me earn it back. Give me a chance to prove that the woman you fell in love with is real, that she's still here, that she's worth knowing." Noah stared at her for a long moment. "And what happens when things get hard? When you get scared again? Are you going to lie? Run? Disappear?" "No." Claire's voice was steady now, certain. "I'm going to stay. I'm going to tell you the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. I'm going to be present, even when I want to hide. Because that's what you do when you love someone. You show up. And I love you, Noah. I love you, and I love Maddie, and I will spend every day for the rest of my life showing up if you give me the chance." Noah's eyes were bright with unshed tears. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, a commotion erupted from the other side of the market. "Maddie Brooks!" A woman's voice, shrill with panic. "Has anyone seen Maddie Brooks?" Claire's blood ran cold. She and Noah turned in unison, scanning the crowd. Maddie wasn't at the berry stand anymore, wasn't anywhere in sight. "Maddie!" Noah called, his voice tight with fear. "Maddie!" No response. Other vendors were picking up the call now, concerned faces turning, people starting to look around. The woman who'd first called out, the berry vendor, rushed over to them. "I turned my back for 1 second and she was gone," the woman said, her face pale. "She was right there and then—" Noah was already moving, pushing through the crowd, calling Maddie's name. Claire followed, her heart pounding, her mind racing through terrible possibilities. They searched the market, asked every vendor, every parent, every person they passed. No one had seen a little girl in purple shoes. 7 minutes felt like 7 hours. And then Claire remembered something Maddie had said. During the birthday party, when Claire had first arrived. "I thought you weren't coming. Dad said you might not come." She grabbed Noah's arm. "The park. There's a park on the other side of the parking lot, with a shed. Is there—" She didn't finish the sentence. Noah was already running. They found Maddie behind a maintenance shed at the edge of the park, curled up in a ball, her purple shoes tucked under her, her face buried in her arms. She was sobbing. "Maddie!" Noah dropped to his knees in front of her, his hands shaking as he reached for her. "Baby, what happened? Why did you run off? You scared me so much." "I'm sorry," Maddie choked out between sobs. I'm sorry. It's okay, you're okay now, I've got you, No." Maddie pulled back, her face red and tear-streaked. "It's not okay. Nothing's okay. You and Claire were talking, and you looked so sad, and I thought if I disappeared, maybe you'd both have to look for me together, and then maybe you'd remember you love each other, and you'd stop being sad." The words hung in the air, devastating in their childish logic. Noah's face crumpled. "Oh, Maddie. Baby girl, that's not— You can't—" He pulled her into a fierce hug, pressing his face into her hair. "Don't ever do that again. Do you hear me? Don't ever scare me like that." "But you're sad," Maddie sobbed into his shoulder. "You've been sad for so long, and it's my fault, because I liked Claire, and now she's gone, and you won't talk about it, and I just wanted to fix it." "It's not your fault," Noah said, his voice breaking. "None of this is your fault, Maddie. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I made you think it was." Claire stood a few feet away, her hand pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. She watched Noah hold his daughter, watched Maddie cling to him like he was the only solid thing in a tilting world, and felt her heart break all over again. This was what her lies had caused, not just pain for her and Noah, but fear and confusion and desperate attempts to fix things from a 7-year-old who should never have had to carry that weight. "I'm sorry," Claire whispered, though she wasn't sure anyone heard her. "I'm so sorry." Maddie's head turned, her tear-filled eyes finding Claire. "Claire?" "I'm here, sweetheart." "Don't leave. Please don't leave again." Claire looked at Noah, asking permission. He hesitated, then nodded once, a small, reluctant movement. Claire knelt down beside them, and Maddie immediately reached for her, pulling her into the embrace. The three of them stayed like that. Noah holding Maddie, Maddie holding both of them, Claire's arms wrapped around them both, while the world kept spinning around them. "I'm not leaving," Claire said, the words a vow. "Not anymore, not ever, I promise." Noah's eyes met hers over Maddie's head. They were full of pain and fear and something else, something that might have been hope, fragile and tentative, but there. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "Really talk. All three of us." Claire nodded, her throat too tight for words. They walked back to the parking lot together, Noah carrying Maddie even though she was really too big for it, Claire walking beside them with her hand resting gently on Maddie's back. People stared, probably wondering what had happened, why the little girl was crying, but none of them cared. When they reached Noah's truck, he set Maddie in the back seat and buckled her in carefully. Then he straightened and looked at Claire. "Follow us home," he said. "We'll talk there." "Okay," Claire managed. She drove behind Noah's truck, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tight her knuckles went white. She didn't know what would happen when they got to his apartment. Didn't know if this was a second chance or a final goodbye. But for the first time in weeks, she felt something other than hopelessness. She felt possibility. Noah's apartment looked exactly the same as Claire remembered. Small, cluttered with love rather than neglect, dinosaur magnets on the fridge, Maddie's drawings covering every available surface. But walking through the door felt different this time. Before, Claire had belonged here, had been part of the warmth and chaos. Now she felt like an intruder, someone who'd lost the right to call this place anything close to home. Maddie had fallen asleep in the truck, exhausted from crying and fear. Noah carried her to her bedroom while Claire stood awkwardly in the living room, her hands clasped in front of her like a defendant waiting for a verdict. Noah emerged a few minutes later, closing Maddie's door softly behind him. He looked at Claire, then at the couch, then back at Claire. "Sit," he said quietly. "Please." Claire sat on the edge of the couch, the same spot where Maddie had curled against her when she'd been sick, where they'd watched dinosaur documentaries together. The memory felt both recent and impossibly far away. Noah sat in the armchair across from her, maintaining distance. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped together. For a long moment, he just looked at her, really looked, like he was trying to reconcile the woman in expensive work clothes with the woman in thrift store cardigans who'd eaten donuts on park benches with his daughter. "I don't know where to start," he said finally. "Neither do I," Claire admitted, "but I think we need to start with the truth. All of it. No more hiding." Noah nodded slowly. "Okay. Truth. You first." Claire took a shaky breath. This was it. The moment where she either rebuilt the bridge or watched it burn completely. "My name is Claire Ashford. I'm 34 years old. I'm the CEO and founder of Ashford Technologies. We do cybersecurity software for financial institutions. The company is worth about $2.3 billion, which makes me worth—" She paused, the number suddenly feeling obscene. "It makes me very wealthy." Noah's expression didn't change. He just waited. "I grew up poor," Claire continued, her voice steadier now. "Really poor. My mom worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. I wore secondhand clothes and ate free lunch at school and watched her slowly break down from exhaustion. When I was 16, she died from a heart attack. The doctors said it was stress. I knew it was poverty." Something flickered in Noah's eyes, compassion, recognition of shared pain. "I built my company from nothing, worked 80-hour weeks, slept in my office, lived on ramen and ambition. And I succeeded beyond my wildest dreams. But success came with a price." Claire's hands twisted in her lap. "Every man I dated after I made my first million was interested in one of two things. Either they wanted my money or they resented me for having it. I had guys propose after 3 dates because they saw dollar signs. I had guys who seemed perfect until they started asking me to invest in their businesses or pay off their student loans or bankroll their dream projects." "That's why you started testing people," Noah said quietly. "Yes. I thought if I could meet someone who cared about me when I had nothing, that would be real. That would be proof I was more than my bank account." Claire's voice cracked. "But what I didn't realize was that lying about who I was meant the love wasn't real either. Because you weren't falling for me. You were falling for a version of me that didn't exist." "No," Noah said, surprising her. "That's not true." Claire looked up, confused. Noah leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. "I've had a lot of time to think about this. A lot of sleepless nights wondering if everything we had was fake. And I realized something. The circumstances you lied about, your job, your money, all of that, those were external things. But the person you were when you were with us, that was real." "How can you know that?" "Because I saw you with Maddie." Noah's voice was soft now. The anger drained away, leaving only raw honesty. "You can't fake the way you looked at her. You can't fake the way you held her when she was sick, or the way you listened to her dinosaur facts like they were the most important things in the world. You can't fake love, Claire. Not the real kind." Tears spilled down Claire's cheeks. "I do love her. I love both of you." "I know you do. That's what makes this so hard." Noah stood up, pacing to the window. "If you'd just been some con artist playing a game, it would be easy to walk away. But you're not. You're someone who got so hurt by people using you that you tried to protect yourself in the worst possible way." "I'm so sorry, Noah. For lying. For making you question what was real. For putting Maddie through this." Noah turned to face her. "I'm sorry too." Claire blinked. "For what?" "For not asking the right questions. For not noticing things that didn't add up. That watch you wore. I'm not stupid, Claire. I knew it was expensive. But I told myself it was a knockoff or a family heirloom because I wanted to believe the version of you I was falling in love with." He paused. "And I'm sorry for shutting you out so completely. I was hurt and scared, and I made decisions about our future without really talking to you. That wasn't fair. You were protecting Maddie. I was protecting myself," Noah corrected. After Sarah died, I built walls just like you did. I convinced myself that as long as I was completely honest with everyone, as long as I never lied or hid anything, I'd never get hurt again. But life doesn't work that way. People are complicated, relationships are messy, and sometimes the truth isn't as simple as honest versus dishonest. Claire stood up slowly, hope fluttering in her chest like a fragile, tentative thing. What are you saying? Noah crossed the room until he was standing directly in front of her, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the pain, but also something else, something that looked like forgiveness. I'm saying I want to try again, but this time we do it right. No lies, no tests, no pretending to be anything other than who we actually are. You mean it? Claire's voice was barely a whisper. I mean it. But Claire, I need you to understand something. If we do this, if we really try, it's going to be hard. You're a billionaire CEO. I'm a mechanic who lives in a 2-bedroom apartment with dinosaur magnets on the fridge. Our lives don't match. Our worlds don't match. I don't care about matching worlds, Claire said fiercely. I care about you and Maddie. I care about Saturday morning farmers markets and terrible carnival food and watching documentaries on your couch. I care about real life, Noah, the kind I never had before I met you. But you can't just leave your life behind. Ashford Technologies exists. Your responsibilities exist. You can't pretend they don't. I'm not going to pretend anything anymore. Yes, I run a company. Yes, I'm wealthy. Those are facts. But they're not who I am. They're things I've done, things I've built. Who I am is the woman who loves your daughter. Who I am is someone who wants to be part of your life, your real life, without hiding or lying or testing. Noah reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face in his hands. His palms were rough, calloused from years of working with tools and engines, and they felt like home. I was falling in love with you, he said, echoing his words from weeks ago. Past tense, but the truth is, I never stopped. I tried to. I tried to convince myself it was over, but I couldn't let go. Present tense? Claire asked, her heart in her throat. Present tense, Noah confirmed. I love you, Claire Ashford. I love you even though you're terrifying and complicated and you lied to me. I love you because when you're with us, you're real in a way I don't think you are anywhere else. And I love you because my daughter loves you, and Maddie's never been wrong about people. Claire's tears fell freely now, soaking into his hands. I love you too. I love you so much. Noah leaned in slowly, giving her time to close the distance or pull away. She closed it. The kiss was soft, tentative, full of everything they'd lost and everything they were trying to rebuild. It tasted like salt and hope and second chances. When they pulled apart, Noah rested his forehead against hers. We're going to have to figure out a lot of things. How to blend our lives. How to help Maddie understand. How to... Dad? They both turned. Maddie stood in the hallway, her hair mussed from sleep, her purple pajamas wrinkled. She was rubbing her eyes, looking between them with an expression that was equal parts confusion and cautious hope. Hey, baby girl, Noah said softly. I thought you were asleep. I was, but I heard voices. Maddie's gaze locked on Claire. Are you really staying this time? Claire knelt down, meeting Maddie at eye level. I'm really staying, if you'll have me. Maddie's lower lip trembled. You promise? You promise you won't disappear again? I promise. And Maddie, I need to tell you something important, something true. Claire took a deep breath. My full name is Claire Ashford, and I run a big company. I have a lot of money, more than I know what to do with, honestly. I lied about that before because I was scared, but I'm not scared anymore. And I want you to know exactly who I am, because you deserve the truth. Maddie processed this with the serious concentration of a child trying to understand adult complications. So you're not a freelance designer? No, sweetheart. I'm sorry. I lied about that. But you still like dinosaurs, right? The question was so earnest, so perfectly Maddie, that Claire almost laughed through her tears. I still like dinosaurs. I especially like hearing you talk about them. And you still want to be my friend? I want to be more than your friend. I want to be part of your family, if that's okay with you and your dad. Maddie looked at Noah, who nodded. Then she looked back at Claire, and slowly, carefully, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Claire's neck. "I still love you," Maddie whispered. "Even if you lied. Because Dad says people make mistakes sometimes, but love means forgiving them." Claire held Maddie tight, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, feeling the small body pressed against hers. "I love you too, sweetheart. So much." They stayed like that for a long moment, the three of them in Noah's small living room, piecing together something broken into something that might actually be stronger than before. When Maddie pulled back, she had a very serious expression on her face. "But no more lying, okay? Because lying is bad and it makes people sad." "No more lying," Claire agreed. "I promise." "Good." Maddie seemed satisfied. Then her expression brightened. "Does this mean you can come to my school play next week? We're doing a thing about habitats and I'm a T-Rex and I get to roar really loud." Claire looked at Noah, who was smiling for the first time since she'd arrived. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." Over the next few weeks, they figured out what their new reality looked like. Claire stopped hiding who she was. She introduced Noah and Maddie to Marcus, who immediately bonded with Maddie over his own secret love of dinosaurs. She took them to her penthouse. Maddie's eyes went wide at the view, and Noah looked uncomfortable for about 10 minutes before Maddie spilled juice on the expensive rug, and Claire laughed instead of panicking, and somehow that broke the tension. Noah met Claire's professional world gradually, attending a company dinner where Claire made it abundantly clear to everyone present that Noah was not someone to be dismissed or pitied or treated as anything less than her equal. When one investor made a snide comment about different social circles, Claire looked him dead in the eye and said, "Noah fixes things that are broken and makes them work again. He's better at that than most people in this room are at anything." The investor never made another comment. They had hard conversations about money, how to handle it, how to talk about it, how to make sure it didn't become a weapon or a wedge between them. About Maddie, how to co-parent, how to set boundaries, how to help her understand that Claire's wealth didn't change the fundamentals of their relationship. About the future, what it looked like, how they'd navigate it, what compromises they'd each need to make. Claire cut back her hours at work, delegating more to her executive team. She still ran the company, still made the big decisions, but she stopped living at the office. Started coming home, to Noah's apartment more often than her penthouse, because home wasn't about square footage or expensive furniture. It was about the people waiting for her. Noah opened up about his own fears, that Claire would eventually get bored of his simple life, that Maddie would start wanting things he couldn't provide, that he'd always feel like he was playing catch-up in a world he didn't fully understand. Claire listened to every fear and met each one with patience and honesty, never dismissing his concerns but never letting them become walls between them either. And slowly, carefully, they built something real. 3 months after that day at the farmer's market, Claire woke up in Noah's bed. They'd been taking things slowly, deliberately, making sure Maddie was comfortable with each step, to find Maddie standing at the bedroom door. "Claire?" Maddie's voice was whisper soft. "Are you awake?" "I am now," Claire said, smiling. "What's up, sweetheart?" "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." Maddie climbed onto the bed, careful not to wake Noah, who was still asleep beside Claire. She settled cross-legged at the foot of the bed, her purple pajamas bright against the navy sheets. "Are you going to marry my dad?" Claire's breath caught. "Did your dad put you up to asking me that?" "No, I just wondered, because you're here a lot now, and Dad smiles more, and I like it when you're here." Maddie paused. "And also because I told Lily at school that you were my family, and she said you couldn't be unless you were married to my dad, or you adopted me or something." Claire sat up slowly, pulling the blanket with her. Behind her, Noah stirred but didn't wake. "Maddie, family isn't just about being married or about legal papers. Family is about people who love each other and show up for each other and choose to be together." "So you are my family?" "I am absolutely your family. Marriage or no marriage, legal papers or no legal papers. You're stuck with me." Maddie grinned. "Good. But also, I think you should marry Dad, because then it would be official and Lily would have to believe me." "Is that the only reason?" Claire asked, trying not to laugh. "No. Also because I want you to live here all the time, not just sometimes. And because Dad told Aunt Jessica he wants to marry you, but he's scared you'll say no because he doesn't have a fancy ring or a big plan. Claire's heart stopped. He said that? I heard him on the phone last week. Maddie looked pleased with herself. I wasn't snooping. I was just getting water, and he was talking loud. Maddie, Noah's groggy voice came from behind Claire. What have we talked about eavesdropping? I wasn't eavesdropping. You were talking loud. Noah sat up, rubbing his eyes, then saw Claire's expression. What did I miss? Your daughter just told me you want to marry me, but you're scared I'll say no. Noah's face went bright red. Maddie! What? I was helping. Maddie looked genuinely confused. Claire turned to face Noah fully. Is it true? Noah ran a hand through his messy hair, looking everywhere except at Claire. This is not how I wanted to have this conversation. Is it true? Claire repeated gently. Noah finally met her eyes. Yeah, it's true. I want to marry you, Claire. I want you here every morning and every night. I want Maddie to have the family she deserves. I want... He stopped, swallowed hard. I want forever with you. But I'm not exactly in a position to offer you the kind of life you're used to. I can't buy you a diamond the size of your fist or take you on fancy honeymoons or... Stop, Claire said, placing her hand over his mouth. Just stop. She looked at Maddie. Sweetheart, can you give us a few minutes? Maddie's eyes went wide. Are you going to kiss? Because Dad said I have to leave the room when there's kissing now that you're dating officially. Maybe. We'll call you when we're done talking, okay? Okay? Maddie bounced off the bed and skipped out of the room, closing the door behind her with exaggerated care. Claire turned back to Noah. Noah Brooks, I don't want a diamond the size of my fist. I don't want fancy honeymoons. I don't want any of the things money can buy. What I want is Saturday mornings at farmers markets. I want to watch Maddie's school plays and help with her homework and hear every single dinosaur fact she wants to share. I want to fall asleep next to you and wake up to your daughter asking impossible questions before the sun is up. I want real life, your life, our life. Noah's eyes were bright. Claire, I'm not done. You said you're not in a position to offer me the kind of life I'm used to. But Noah, the life I'm used to was lonely and empty and full of people who wanted things from me. You offer me something infinitely more valuable. You offer me love without conditions. You offer me a daughter who looks at me like I hung the moon. You offer me a home that actually feels like home. Claire took his hands in hers. So yes, I will marry you. Yes, I want forever. And I don't need you to ask with a ring or a plan. I just need you to ask. Noah stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, a sound full of relief and joy and disbelief. That was supposed to be my line. Too slow, Claire said, grinning through her tears. Noah cupped her face in his hands. Claire Ashford, will you marry me? Will you be my wife and Maddie's? He paused, searching for the right word. Mom, Claire said firmly, I want to be her mom, if she wants that. If you both want that. She wants that, Noah said, his voice rough. And I want that. I want all of it. Then yes, 1,000 times yes. He kissed her then, deep and sure and full of promises. And when they pulled apart, both breathless and smiling, they heard a squeal from outside the door. She said yes, Dad, she said yes. Noah groaned. She was listening the whole time. Of course she was, Claire said, laughing. She's your daughter. They opened the door to find Maddie dancing in the hallway, her excitement barely contained. She launched herself at both of them, and they caught her, the three of them tumbling back onto the bed in a tangle of limbs and laughter. So you're going to be my real mom? Maddie asked, her face pressed against Claire's shoulder. If that's what you want, Claire said, I would be honored. Can I call you Mom? Claire's throat tightened with emotion. I would love that. Maddie pulled back, her expression suddenly serious. And you promise, you really, really promise, you're not going to leave? Not ever? Not ever, Claire vowed. You're stuck with me, kiddo, forever and ever. Even when I'm annoying? Especially when you're annoying. Maddie grinned, satisfied. Then she looked at Noah. Dad, can we get pancakes to celebrate? The special ones with the chocolate chips? Yeah, baby girl, we can definitely get pancakes. The wedding was small, just family and close friends. No press, no cameras, no spectacle. They held it in the same park where Maddie had hidden behind the shed, where everything had almost fallen apart, but had somehow, miraculously, held together. Jessica officiated, beaming as she declared them married. Maddie was the flower girl, wearing a purple dress with dinosaurs embroidered on the hem that Claire had custom made for her. Marcus stood as Claire's best man, having long since transcended his role as assistant to become genuine family. Noah wore a simple suit he'd bought off the rack. Claire wore a dress that cost more than most people's cars, but looked so beautiful that Noah cried when he saw her. And when they exchanged vows, honest, raw, full of promises to show up and stay in love through the hard things, there wasn't a dry eye in the small crowd. Maddie insisted on adding her own vow during the ceremony. She stood between Claire and Noah, holding both their hands, and said in her clear 7-year-old voice, "I promise to remind you guys when you're being silly and fighting about dumb stuff. And I promise to teach Claire everything about dinosaurs. And I promise to love you both forever, even when I'm a teenager and Dad says I'll be grumpy." Everyone laughed. Everyone cried. And when Noah kissed Claire, Maddie cheered louder than anyone. They didn't go on a fancy honeymoon. Instead, they took a week off and went to a cabin in the mountains. No cell service, no work, just the three of them hiking and roasting marshmallows and looking at stars. Maddie found 17 different types of rocks she insisted were definitely fossils, and Claire pretended every single one was an incredible discovery. On their last night at the cabin, after Maddie had fallen asleep in her bedroom, Claire and Noah sat on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the stars. "I need to tell you something," Claire said quietly. Noah tensed slightly. "Okay." "I'm making some changes at work. I'm stepping down as CEO." Noah turned to look at her, surprised. "What? Why?" "Because I've spent 15 years building a company, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished, but I'm tired of it consuming my life. I'm tired of missing dinners and bedtimes and school plays because I'm in a meeting that could have been an email." Claire leaned into Noah's side. "I'm staying on as chairman of the board. I'll still be involved in major decisions, but I'm hiring a new CEO to handle the day-to-day operations. Someone younger and hungrier and more excited about quarterly earnings than I am." "Are you sure? Claire, you built that company from nothing. I know. And it will keep existing without me running every detail. That's the whole point. I built something that can survive without me. Now I want to build something else." "Like what?" Claire smiled. "Like a life. Like a family. Like a future where I'm actually present for the people I love, instead of always having one foot out the door." Noah was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You know you don't have to give up your career for us, right? We'll make it work. We'll figure it out." "I'm not giving it up. I'm just redefining what success looks like. And for me, right now, success looks like being home for dinner. Success looks like helping Maddie with her homework. Success looks like falling asleep next to you every night and waking up next to you every morning." She paused. "I spent so long measuring my worth by what I could achieve and accumulate. But you taught me something, Noah. You taught me that worth isn't about what you have. It's about who you are and who you love and how you show up for them." Noah pulled her closer, kissing the top of her head. "I love you." "I love you too." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just existing together under the vast expanse of stars. 6 months later, Claire stood in the audience of Maddie's elementary school, watching her daughter, stand on stage dressed as a stegosaurus, explaining to a room full of parents about herbivore habitats and plate-backed dinosaurs and why they were underrated in popular culture. Maddie spotted Claire in the crowd and waved enthusiastically, nearly knocking over her cardboard habitat diorama in the process. Claire waved back, grinning so hard her cheeks hurt. Noah sat beside her, holding her hand, his other arm draped across the back of her chair. "She's so much like you," he murmured. "What do you mean?" "Confident, smart, completely unafraid to tell everyone exactly what she thinks." Noah squeezed her hand. "Thank you." "For what?" "For staying, for choosing us, for being exactly who you are. All of you. No masks, no pretending." He paused. "For loving our daughter the way you do." Claire's eyes stung with happy tears. She makes it easy. After the presentation, they took Maddie out for ice cream, a tradition they'd established for special occasions. Maddie ordered 3 scoops of different flavors because she couldn't decide, got it all over her face, and talked nonstop about how the whole audience had laughed when she'd made her joke about T-Rex arms. That evening, back at their apartment, they'd moved into a bigger place, 3 bedrooms so Maddie could have her own space, and Claire could have a small home office, but not so big it lost the warmth of Noah's original place. Claire helped Maddie get ready for bed. "Mom?" Maddie said as Claire tucked her in, the title still sending a thrill through Claire's chest every time she heard it. "Yeah, sweetheart? I'm glad you lied." Claire blinked. "What?" "At first, when you pretended to be broke. Because if you hadn't, you might not have given Dad a chance. And then I wouldn't have you." Maddie's expression was completely serious. "So I'm glad you lied, even though lying is bad, because it brought you to us." Claire's throat tightened. She sat on the edge of Maddie's bed, brushing curls away from her forehead. "You know what? I think you might be right. I think sometimes we make mistakes that end up being the best things that ever happened to us. Like Dad says, every broken thing is an opportunity to build something better." Exactly like that. Maddie yawned, her eyes already drooping. "Love you, Mom." "Love you too, baby girl." Claire turned off the light and closed the door most of the way, leaving it cracked like Maddie preferred. She found Noah in their bedroom, already changed into sleep clothes, sitting on the edge of the bed with something in his hands. "What's that?" Claire asked. Noah held it up. It was the thrift store cardigan, the one with the missing button, the one Claire had worn on their first date. "I found it in the back of your closet. I was going to ask if you wanted to donate it, but then I thought..." He paused. "I thought maybe we should keep it as a reminder." "A reminder of what?" "Of where we started, of how we almost lost each other, of how we found our way back." Noah set the cardigan on the dresser, then pulled Claire into his arms. "Of how the best things in life are often the ones we have to fight for." Claire wrapped her arms around his waist, pressing her face into his chest. "We did fight for this, didn't we?" "Yeah, we did." They stood like that for a long moment, just holding each other, grateful for second chances and forgiveness and the messy, complicated, beautiful reality of building a life together. Later that night, after they turned off the lights and settled into bed, Claire whispered into the darkness, "Noah? Thank you for covering my dinner that first night, for not flinching when you realized I couldn't pay, for treating me like I mattered even when you thought I had nothing." Noah pulled her closer, his voice soft and sure. "You did matter, you still do. Not because of what you have or don't have, just because you're you." And in that moment, lying in a modest apartment with her husband beside her and her daughter sleeping down the hall, Claire Ashford, billionaire CEO who'd spent years testing men to prove they couldn't love her without her money, realized something profound. She'd been running an experiment with the wrong hypothesis. The question was never whether someone could love her without her wealth. The question was whether she could love herself enough to let someone try. And the answer, finally, was yes. 3 years later, Claire stood in her garage. Yes, her garage, because she'd bought the building that housed Noah's mechanic shop and converted the apartment above it into their home. A compromise that let Noah keep his business and gave them more space without forcing either of them to give up what mattered, watching her husband teach their daughter how to change a tire. Maddie was 10 now, still obsessed with dinosaurs, but also newly fascinated with engineering and how things worked. She lay on the creeper, sliding under the car with fearless confidence while Noah talked her through each step. "That's it, Mads. See where the jack point is? You've got it." "I got it, Dad. I totally got it." Claire leaned against the doorway, a mug of coffee in her hands, watching her family. The garage smelled like oil and metal and hard work, smells she'd come to associate with home and safety and love. Her phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. "Board meeting went well. New CEO is killing it. The company's in good hands." Claire smiled and typed back, "Good. I'm exactly where I need to be." She looked up as Maddie emerged from under the car, her face smudged with grease, her grin triumphant. "Mom, I did it. I changed a tire all by myself." "I saw. I'm so proud of you." Maddie ran over, and Claire didn't even flinch when grease-covered hands wrapped around her waist. She just set down her coffee and hugged her daughter tight. Noah walked over, wiping his hands on a rag, his eyes warm. Our girl's a natural. Takes after her dad, Claire said. Takes after both of you, Noah corrected. She's got your determination and my love of fixing broken things. Nothing's broken anymore, Claire said softly. Noah cupped her face in his oil-stained hands and kissed her soundly. No, nothing's broken. Everything's exactly right. And standing there in a garage in a converted building with oil under her daughter's fingernails and grease on her own shirt, Claire knew he was right. She'd spent years trying to prove that love without money was real love. What she'd learned instead was simpler and more profound. Real love wasn't about what you had or didn't have. It was about showing up, staying, choosing each other every day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. It was about 3 stick figures holding hands. It was about a man who covered dinner without flinching, and a little girl who forgave mistakes, and a woman who finally learned that she was enough, just as she was, without tests or games or pretending. It was about this, right here, right now. A family built not on lies or money or perfect circumstances, but on truth and love and the courage to be vulnerable. Claire had started her experiment looking for proof that she was more than her wealth. She'd ended it with something infinitely more valuable. Proof that she was loved not despite who she was, but because of it. All of it. The CEO and the scared girl who'd grown up poor, the billionaire and the woman who wore thrift store cardigans, the mistakes and the triumphs and everything in between. And that, Claire thought, as Maddie dragged them both back to the car to show them exactly how she'd positioned the jack, was the only truth that mattered. She was loved, completely, honestly, forever. And she was home.